Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Arriving at the cafe, Shiro saw Lyrica and Madison sitting face to face at one of the tables. Shiro. Lyrica called out when she saw Shiro. Sitting down next to her, Shiro brought out her phone. So please explain to me how and why you both are in a cafe and had finished the round so quickly. Shiro typed out with a raised eyebrow. About that. Lyrica smiled awkwardly. Well, imagine both me and Lyrica doing pretty good in the round. Then some crazy F***er appears out of nowhere and blows himself up. Guess what happened next? Madison said with annoyance. She was progressing pretty nicely through the round with her Demon Knight class, and then the suicide bomber appeared behind her. Next thing she knew, she was eliminated and sent out of the simulation. Yeah, both me and Maddie were eliminated by bombers. Lyrica sighed. That's quite bad luck. Shiro agreed. Thankfully, she had only seen the bombers from afar and not up close. If she did, she would have been eliminated quite early on as well. So how did you do in your arena? Madison asked as she turned to Shiro. Finished in top 10 before getting my ass handed to me by a behemoth boss. She replied with a dismissive wave of her hand. Oh my, top 10 in a top 100 battle royal. Lyrica muttered in surprise. That's very nice and everything. But Shiro, you should stop being vulgar. And your habit of going for the ahem. You might want to stop that, or else you won't ever find a hubby. Madison said with a small smile. Hopefully, this should make Lyrica more aggressive. Fufufu. Lyrica paused in shock when she heard Madison. Find a hubby? Who said I needed to find one? Shiro replied without much care. What do you mean? Madison asked as this was outside of her expectations. Well, it's like this. Do I need a husband to walk? Do I need a husband to fight? Do I need a husband to feed myself? And while this may be vulgar, it is the truth. Do I, this Missy, look like I need a husband? And if anything, the only use for them is for pleasure. Not to mention, I'm pretty sure I saw items that can substitute for a husband anyways. Shiro typed out without much care. You get a husband for the emotional company? Madison replied as she was surprised by her response. If she ignored the fact that Shiro was only 13, then it would make sense from a personality standpoint. However, the strangeness of hearing this from a 13-year-old was quite an odd feeling. I'm pretty sure having a split personality will give me emotional company. Shiro chuckled. Speaking of finding husbands and everything. Shiro, what do you think about same-sex relationships? Lyrica asked, curious as to what Shiro would say. However, the moment she asked it, she started to regret. What if she said she's completely against it? Same-sex relationships? I don't really know. Shiro shrugged her shoulders. Never really encountered them, so I can't say for sure. But I suppose I'm leaning towards the okay side? Like I don't mind them. Is that so? Lyrica muttered. While she seemed calm, her mind was not. Yes. She said she didn't mind them. Yes. Lyrica cheered mentally. Fufufu. So you don't mind them, huh? Madison said with a grin. She could easily tell what Lyrica truly thought through her calm facade. You're smiling too much, Lyrica, Madison thought, seeing Lyrica grin like a child being rewarded with candy. All right, enough about romance talk. This kind of talk really doesn't suit me. Shiro typed out. She'd much rather talk about leveling up, fighting, and training for combat. I'm thinking of doing another dungeon run to level up. And this time you two are coming with me. Shiro smiled. What level dungeon? Madison asked. Level 30. Shiro smiled with a slightly sadistic aura. Wait, what? Hashtag. Asterisk dang. Madison quickly parried a strike from the monster with her sword. Flicking her arm up, she made the humanoid monster stumble backwards, giving Lyrica the chance she needed. Burning Lotus. Her dual-ended sword slashed against the monster bare chest, leaving hideous scorch marks. The skin was ripped and burnt while the flesh was boiling under the heat. During this, Madison pivoted on her foot and stabbed the sword into the open wound. Twisting the sword, a shockwave exploded inside the monster, forcing his bones to stab out of its body. Asterisk clap. Lyrica and Madison high-fived when they saw the defeated monster. Shiro, we killed the level 30 dash. Lyrica called out to Shiro but paused for a moment. Asterisk crack. What they saw was Shiro almost effortlessly hitting the monster's jaw, causing the head to spin all the way around and killing the monster in the process. Looking at the small mountain of corpses around Shiro, their single kill seemed less and less impressive. Next time you should aim for the weak points. The torso is one of the hardest parts of the monster. You should aim for the ass, the mouth, the neck, and the temple. These are the weakest parts. Why is ass the first weakness, you say? Madison thought. Currently, they were in the level 30 dungeon, Miner's Cavern. The monsters were large muscular humanoids that attack in large groups. With 4 floors in total, this was one of the bigger dungeons. We've discovered around 70% of the first floor. Let's get the other 30% first before going to the next floor, Shiro suggested. All right. Lyrica nodded. Looking at their levels, Shiro was quite satisfied with their growth. In the time they had explored the first floor, Lyrica had risen her level from 22 to 24. Madison, on the other hand, had risen her level from 21 to 23. The benefits of fighting higher levels are proportionate to the danger they held, and naturally, they would have died to the horde if Shiro wasn't here. With how much they struggled on a single mob, taking on more than one at a time will be suicidal. Once we get a general feel for this dungeon, we should be able to spend a few days inside here and grind up our levels. Shiro typed out. Her main goal was to try to get the duo's levels near the 30 mark. This was so that they would be able to challenge harder dungeons. Feeling a scent of danger, Shiro flicked her fingers as a pillar of ice shot up from behind her. Asterisk ga. The ice pieced through the lower jaw of a monster and through the skull, suspending him in the air. Every time I see you do this, I still don't understand how you do it. How do you attack so accurately without looking at them? Madison asked. It's all about the senses. You sense the danger, the bloodlust, and the aura they radiate. After sensing this, you attack. Simple. What? That sounds like a sixth sense of sorts, Lyrica said. That's because it is. When you see a giant beast, their aura is being flared to intimidate you. You can't see it, touch it, smell it, or taste it, but you instinctively know it's there. However, that's only when it is blasting it fully in your face. It's like when you feel someone stare at you. Lyrica is somewhat special in this regard. While she doesn't have the ability to completely focus in on these senses, her hidden proficiency is reacting for her. In my case, what I do is manually enhance my perception of this aura to its max. This way, it acts as a radar. I'll know if danger is behind me and be able to react accordingly. And you keep this radar on all the time? Wouldn't it be difficult? Madison asked. She was slightly concerned since it sounds like it would put a lot of stress on Shiro's mind to be on guard constantly. I do keep it on at all times. At the start, it was difficult. The radar would turn on and off at odd intervals since I couldn't keep a constant focus on the radar. However, as time went on, it just became second nature to me. What kind of situation requires you to be on guard at all times? Lyrica asked with a slight frown. She had understood that Shiro had more secrets than other people after knowing her for a short amount of time. Number 13-year-old fights with her experience, or have the capability to solo dungeons with ease. Yet, she now found out that she needed to be on guard for the majority of her childhood. Dangerous ones. Out in the world, you don't know what might happen, so you must be on guard at all times. Shiro shrugged. All right, let's continue with this dungeon. We don't want to waste too much time after all. Madison and Lyrica nodded since Shiro was right. They wanted to make the most out of their time in the dungeon so they could level up quicker. Dashing through the tunnels, they reached the last third of the first floor. Let's crush through them, Madison said as Lyrica nodded. Thousand Blade Aura plus Willow Blade Aura. Lyrica used both of her berserk skills and crouched down. Asterisk bam. Kicking up a cloud of dust, she charged towards the monsters. Heated Edge plus Instant Strike. Her sword lit up with a crimson glow while her body flickered forwards. Slashing her sword, she left 2 deep lacerations in the necks of 2 monsters. Maddie, finish them, Lyrica shouted out. I know. Attack demon manifestation. Stomping down hard, a dark red magic circle expanded instantly. Dark mist wrapped around her body as layers of armor appeared on her body. Her sword morphed itself into a great sword the size of her entire body. With the manifestation, her aura also changed, catching Shiro's attention. The chaotic, battle-hungry aura was surprisingly dense from what she could feel. The Demon Knight class must be a pretty high-grade class, Shiro thought. Twisting her body, Madison swung her greatsword at the monsters. Asterisk boom. Due to the fact that her attack still wasn't enough to cut through the monsters, it acted as a club instead, crushing their bones and organs before sending their body crashing into the walls. Stabbing the greatsword into the ground, Madison twisted her greatsword as a pair of magma pillars stabbed towards the demons. Ohaya? This attack demon gives her magma attunement this time, Shiro thought with surprise. Her previous demon manifestations gave her earth attunement, lightning attunement, and the such. And yet, this time it gave her magma attunement, the evolved version of the fire attunement. This is pretty useful. While it might be random regarding which attunement she gets, it's still handy to get decent attunements on the go, Shiro thought. However, she's putting too much effort in ending the two monsters. She would be much more efficient if she practiced utilizing her skills more. Dashing in front of Madison, Shiro wanted to back Lyrica up. Jumping up, she made 8 daggers in her hands before twisting her body and throwing them across the combat zone. Clenching her fists, the daggers broke apart into several other daggers. Asterisk boom boom boom. The moment each dagger hit their target, they exploded into ice mist that froze the monsters. Taking advantage of the situation, Lyrica dashed through the frozen crowd whilst slashing at each of the monsters. The sudden difference in temperature caused the ice to shatter, killing the monsters in the process. Keeping up their pace, they chewed through the remaining 30% of monsters on the first floor with ease. Walking up to the obelisk, they saw the Guardian walking aimlessly. It looked similar to a very fat mole rat that had quite some girth in his arms. 2 sharp teeth protruded from his mouth, followed by patches of hair littered throughout his body. He is one ugly thing. Madison commentated on what they thought about the boss. True, but do not underestimate it just because it is ugly. Making an ice spear, Shiro gestured for them to make the first move. Nodding at the gesture, Madison used defensive demon manifestation this time. Heavy armor appeared on her body while her weapon was replaced by a sword and shield. With a refreshed skill tree befitting of tanks, Madison dashed forward. HAAA. Using the skill, Taunting Shout to drag aggro, she then bolstered her resistances with Iron Skin. Asterisk bang. The tail of the mole rat smashed against her shield. Sliding back only slightly, Madison readjusted her footing before smashing into the mole rat with her shield. Repelling force. The force gathered from the mole rat's strike was rebounded back to the mole rat, causing it to stumble backwards. I've grabbed aggro, Madison called out. All right. Jumping towards the boss, Lyrica brandished her sword and slashed towards the neck of the mole rat. Bad timing, Shiro thought as she quickly flicked her wrist. Asterisk bang. The mole rat had suddenly twisted his head towards Lyrica and chomped down. However, before it could hit Lyrica, Ice Chain shot out the ground and pinned it to the ground. Continuing her slash, Lyrica's sword only made a shallow wound. Frowning slightly, she kicked off the mole rat and flipped away from it. Landing next to Shiro, Lyrica breathed out in relief. Try to time your attacks while observing the boss's muscle movements. Depending on what it wants to do, you can see it through the muscle movements it exhibits. Wait, you can see its muscle movements? Lyrica asked in surprise. During a fight, the flesh would move everywhere. Yet, Shiro was still able to pick out which ones were the ones to determine what it wanted to do. Yes, I can. And you'll be able to as well once you gain enough experience. Stop talking, please. Attack it. Madison's shout was heard while she parried another one of the mole rat's attacks. Hearing the shout, Lyrica dashed forward to assist. With Shiro playing as support, the fight took a bit longer to finish. Unfortunately, Shiro still wasn't able to level up with this fight. Shaking her head, She could only hope the next few floors gave her enough EXP to level up. Asterisk gah. With a single cry, the guardian of the third floor obelisk collapsed against the floor. Gah. Oh my god. Finally, Madison cried out as she fell on her back. Panting heavily, she cursed at the previous fight. What kind of boss is able to shift a bone through their body to make another arm? She complained. This one, Lyrica replied as she was currently laying face down on the floor. Shiro only shook her head, seeing how dramatic they were being. Shiro, don't even think about it. I know that face, and we are definitely not overdramatic. Having a third arm suddenly stick out from the belly to give you a punch is definitely not normal. Madison complained as she turned her head to Shiro. I second that, Lyrica agreed. Well, I suppose they are correct. Shiro thought with a smile. But, you did good against this boss. Would have done worse if Ian wasn't here chaining up the boss every once in a while. Lyrica reminded them. There were several close calls where Ian would use her ice chain skill to lock the boss down, saving the girls from a heavy hit. Do realize that you two are both level 25, and you fought a level 30 boss. Not to mention, you survived and even killed it with minimal help from me and little Ian. During the fight, Shiro saw that the two were holding off the boss quite well, so she decided to do a little less in order to push their bodies past their limits. And as she had expected, the fight had drawn out more of their survival instincts, allowing them to dodge attacks they would normally have trouble with and increase how often they see an opening they can take advantage of. However, Lyrica and Madison weren't the only ones to level up and improve. Ian had increased her level to 20. The only problem laid with her class up. They had no idea how Ian would class up. She had already tried feeding her AC-ranked mana stone, yet it had no effect. It just looked like Ian leveling up passively without actually classing up. Ian LVL 20. HP 25 000/25 000. MP 65 000/65 000. Skills Shadow Buff Tier 1. Ice Chain Tier 1. Shadow Cloak Tier 1. Shadow Talon Tier 1. Naturally, with her level up, she was able to gain the skill Shadow Talon. Shadow Talon in itself was a simple skill since it just helped increase Yin's damage potential up slightly. As for Shiro, she had not managed to level up despite the fact that she had cleared out a majority of monsters on each of the floors. Probably because they're almost 5 levels below me. I would have to do 2 or 3 runs to actually level up from mobs lower than me due to decreased EXP gain, she thought. However, she didn't have any idea how much EXP she had accumulated. She could potentially level up with the next kill or after 5 more dungeons. Even if I don't level up during the boss fight, I'll probably run through the dungeon a few more times with Lyrica and Madison. At least I can also get them some easy levels. Shiro thought with a shake of her head. The sudden jubilation and surprise of a level up were always welcome. Just the feeling of elation that fills you after a fight was intoxicating for Shiro. She made sure to enjoy every bit of it since level ups will become rarer the higher level she was. Jumping from one level to another may take you months to complete. Alright, since we've rested enough, let's go to the last boss. URG. Let me rest a bit longer, Madison cried out in injustice. Looking at Madison's figure whilst laying down, Shiro couldn't help but narrow her eyes. Maybe I should make her fight until her cow udders become iron pecs. They'll be more helpful for her since she's a tanker and not a model, Shiro thought. Madison shivered slightly as she felt endangered. Quickly sitting up, Madison looked around and saw the way Shiro was staring at her breasts. She's the source of danger, she cried out mentally. Welp, Lyrica. Come on, let's go fight the last boss, Madison said hastily, dragging Lyrica by the arms. Let me rest longer. Lyrica protested while her body was entirely relaxed, resulting in Madison dragging her like a ragdoll. Shiro chuckled seeing the shenanigans of the duo. Entering the obelisk, they tapped the icon for the final floor. They shielded their eyes while the teleport was happening. Once they reopened them, they saw the boss room. The room was brightly lit as day, which was very odd for an underground dungeon, and had crystals of different colors scattered around the room. Shiro first looked towards the ceiling in case of ambush before refocusing on the crystals. There were 5 colors in total for the crystals, and Shiro recognized it to be elemental crystals. So it's an enhancement type boss. It'll grow stronger depending on what type of crystal it eats during the fight, Shiro thought. Locating the places where the crystals are, Shiro made a mental note of this. I wonder if I will get a boost eating one of these crystals. I know that humans would just be sick and might die if they ate one. But I'm a monster now, and I should get the same benefits as these monsters, Shiro thought. Where's the boss? Lyrica asked as the boss hadn't appeared yet. Maybe it's hiding in ambush? Madison suggested. Good thinking. You should also make sure you check the ceiling of the boss room in case it drops down and attacks you, Shiro suggested. Reading the suggestion, the two looked up. Since it's not in front of us, nor is it above us, then can it be under us? Lyrica asked. Nice guess. And yes, you were right. Shiro smiled as she pointed her finger at an obscure corner. With how the lighting was, they barely saw the scaled back of the boss. Seeing that it was discovered, the boss's body shook as the boss room trembled along with the boss. Whoa! Madison cried out whilst trying to stabilize herself. Lyrica reached out for her as she helped Madison stabilize herself. Looking over to Shiro, they were unsurprised when they saw her unaffected. No matter how much it shook, it looked like she was having a gentle walk. Once the boss had excavated itself from the ground, its entire body was in view. Its main body comprised of an almost fleshless hybrid of a mole rat and a centipede. With segments of just skin and bone, its fleshless arms reached out for the support pillars near it. On its back, a scaled layer could be seen, bearing high resemblance to a lizard's back. Looking at the almost fleshless, multi-armed, scaled mole rat thing in front of them, Madison had to blink a few times just to make sure she wasn't seeing things. You ever just imagine what would happen if that thing had parents? Madison asked. Nope, but if it did, its parents must be pretty wild for the appearance to merge this much. Lyrica replied. Looks perfect to be skewered. A single ice pillar, and that thing would look like a barbecue, was Shiro thoughts. Don't even think about attacking the rear, Lyrica said. TSK. Seeing that her thoughts were seen through, Shiro inspected the boss. Nightmare Miner LVL 30. HP 800 000/800 000. MP 500 000/500 000. Well, he certainly is the nightmare. Shiro agreed with the name. Do you know what to do? Madison, you tank. Lyrica, your damage dealer, and I'm the support. Shiro typed out quickly. The duo nodded as they were pretty used to this now. Little Ian, lock him up and blind him if you can, Shiro whispered. Asterisk chirp. Ian patted her chest in reassurance before flapping her wings towards the monster. Asterisk ping. Chains shot out from the ground and locked the monster up. Flying towards the pair of eyes at the front, Yin's talons lit up with a deep purple aura. Asterisk kishk. Surprisingly, a layer of scales had dropped down and over the eyes of the monster, protecting it from Yin's attack. Asterisk chirp. Yin was confused as to whether or not she should attack. Little Yin. Shiro called out to Yin. Flying back to Shiro, Yin pointed at the monster and chirped in annoyance, almost as if she was complaining to Shiro that the monster didn't take the attack like a monster should. Ha ha ha, little Yin. The monster isn't going to let you hit it for free. Shiro chuckled, but she wasn't idle. Dashing towards the monster, she created 4 ice spears in the air before sending them to the 4 corners of the room. Pivoting on her left foot, Shiro drew a circle with her right foot. A magic circle rotated into existence while she slammed her palms down and caused the magic circle to light up. When she did this, the ice spears also lit up with a blue glow. Asterisk boom. The spears shattered into shards that surrounded the elemental crystals like a prison cell. With her preparation done, Shiro dashed towards the boss to support Madison in tanking, while Lyrica deals the damage. Asterisk boom boom. Redirecting the force of 2 punches, Madison gritted her teeth for the leftover force from the attack. Seeing that 2 punches couldn't kill the tiny human in front of it, the boss opted to use 4 punches instead. Shiro appeared in front of Madison at this moment because she knew Madison would not be able to handle 4 attacks at once. 3? Barely. 4? Definitely not. Making an ice spear, Shiro twirled the ice spear before intercepting the attacks. In one simple sequence, she redirected the flow of the fists, causing them to collide into one another. Me and you will tank together, Shiro typed out with one hand. All right. Madison nodded as she braced her shield once more. Hashtag hashtag hashtag. Little Snow had entered the dungeon. It should take her a day or so inside the dungeon before coming out again. Nantion thought to himself whilst gazing at the city. Nantion, I found a few traces of the ritual being performed. However, the ritual is much larger in scale than we had expected. Hwan-er reported. How large? Nantion asked. By current simulations, it should cover roughly 50% of New York City. 50%, huh? Increase that to about 60 to 70%. Why? Rituals have the tendency to increase in potential depending on which spots you make as your foundation. Since we are dealing with Black Monarchy, you can guess the rituals they perform are much more powerful than normal rituals. Nantion shook his head. The main reason as to why he was deployed to New York was due to this ritual problem. While they didn't know the contents of this ritual, they knew that a ritual of this magnitude had to be dealt with. Can't you just search the entire city for Black Monarchy members? Hwan-er asked. She knew about Nantion's eye, which let him see through all disguises, so she was wondering as to why he wasn't using it. You misunderstand the power of my eye. Yes, I can see through disguises, but Black Monarchy members don't have a title saying that they're members of the Black Monarchy. My eye cannot see into the mind. I can't just look at someone and know what they're thinking. Therefore, I cannot just look at someone and say they are Black Monarchy members. That'll be irresponsible. Nantion shook his head. But weren't you able to see the thoughts of the Ice Mage? Hwan-er thought, feeling a little sour on the inside. So since we can't make use of my eye, we'll have to find clues and try to track them down manually. Understand? Nantion asked, turning around slightly. Understood. Good. Turning back to the city, he wondered about what Shiro was going to do after leaving the city. Shaking his head, he put idle thoughts to the side for now. He had serious business to take care of first. Hashtag hashtag hashtag. Asterisk boom. Seeing the nightmarish creature finally die to a lethal blow to the head, Madison and Lyrica sighed in relief. Shiro, on the other hand, was smiling as she had been able to level up with the defeat of this boss. Name, Shiro. Race, Snow Girl, evolution criteria yet to be met. Title, Shadow Empress, Beginner Monster, 1/10 humans killed, fratricide. Level, 35. Class, Snow Girl, eligible for star advancement, Snowmancer. HP, 59, 020/85, 600. MP, 82, 500/131, 200. STR, 520, plus 110. VIT, 550-600, plus 85. INT, 750-850, plus 200. AGI, 600-670, plus 130. DEX, 600, plus 70. DEF, 255, plus 130. Equals title bonus. Unassigned points, 220-0. Attunements. Ice Tier 2. Lightning Tier 1. Metal Tier 0. Shadow Tier 0. Balance, $12,500,001 US. Equipment, tap to display. Skills. Snow Girl. Tier 2 Ice Magic, Passive Regeneration, Blessed by Ice, Snow Magic, Faded Snow Movement, Cold Aura, Icy Touch, Icy Breath. Snowmancer. Dagger Creation, Nanotech Engineering Tier 1, Sword Creation, Bow Creation, Heavy Weapon Creation, Shield Creation. Other. Minimap, Inspection, Disguise, Mana Barrier. Shared Skills, Shadow Buff, Tier 1. Ice Chain, Tier 1. Shadow Cloak, Tier 1, Shadow Talon, Tier 1. With her level up, she had finally gained the option to increase her star from 2 stars to 3 stars. Snow Girl, star advancement in progress, 48 out of 200D ranked Mana Stone, 0 out of 5 Ice Spirit Essence, 0 out of 1 Ice Heart. Seeing the requirements, Shiro was thankful that they weren't too difficult of a task for her to complete. The 200D ranked Mana Stone can be gained by running a D-ranked dungeon several times. The 5 Ice Spirit Essence was an item you get from bosses near cold areas. The drop rate for the Ice Spirit Essence was rather low, so Shiro would probably need to kill quite a few before she reached 5. The last item was probably the hardest one, but also the easiest one. I can probably get it if I scam the Mages Association. Since all of us have leveled up, shall we end the dungeon runs for today? Madison asked. Sure. I want to start doing my star-up requirements. No wonder you're still an ice mage. You should be at 2 stars now, right? And you're doing your 3rd star, I believe. Lyrica said. 3rd star, huh? I heard that not a lot of people get their 5th star, but quite a few get their 4th star, Madison said while stretching her body a little. The 5th star is a lot harder since the benefits it gives are much more than what a normal class up offers. If it wasn't difficult, it would no longer be fair. Well, fair is pushing it a little, but you understand what I mean. The more effort you put into something, the greater the potential rewards. True. So what do you need to do? Madison asked. I need 200D ranked Mana Stones, 5 Ice Spirit Essences, and 1 Ice Heart. Shiro replied. I have quite a few D-ranked Mana Stones that I can give you. Madison pulled out a handful of D-ranked Mana Stones and passed it to Shiro. Me too. It isn't much, but it should help, Lyrica said, doing the same as Madison. With the Mana Stones filling up her hands, Shiro wasn't able to reply to them. Think of this as payment. Not everyone can get a high-leveled and experienced adventurer to power level them up. Therefore, giving you a portion of our D-ranked Mana Stones to help you star up is only natural. Madison grinned. Yup. Lyrica nodded. These two, Shiro thought with a weary smile. Storing the Mana Stones in her inventory, she pulled out her phone. Thank you. Ha. It should be me and Lyrica saying thank you to you. If you didn't appear in our lives, I would probably still antagonize Lyrica, and perhaps she might not have found out about her hidden proficiency this quickly. Madison smiled awkwardly. Looking back a few weeks in time, she was indeed a little petty for holding it against Lyrica. She couldn't help the fact that her body movement was always awkward due to her hidden proficiency. On top of that, she wasn't able to get a lot of EXP, so her level was naturally lower than everyone else's. Not to mention the fact that on lower levels, it doesn't matter since the level differences between 1 and 20 are small, they are just trials. Only after level 20 did the differences actually start to matter more. Smiling at the fact that Madison accepted her flaws and was able to joke about them, Shiro was glad she picked her as a teammate. Alright, let's head out of here and eat our hearts out. I am starving after doing a hard dungeon like this in one go, Madison said, pulling both Shiro and Lyrica by the arms. I don't want to eat my heart out though. I'll get fat, Lyrica complained. Thank God I don't get fat, Shiro thought as she couldn't even imagine herself if the Mana Stones made her fat. With the amount she had to eat, she looked like a dumpling. Before they left the dungeon, Shiro made sure to collect all of the elemental crystals. What do you need them for? Not a lot of people have uses for them, Lyrica asked. Interested about them. Now come on. Shiro dismissed as she walked to the exit. Upon leaving the dungeon, they saw that the time was still rather early. Wait, why is there only 3 of you? One of the people at the scene suddenly said. The trio looked at each other before Shiro grabbed them both by the waist. Style Phantom Art. First Phantom plus, second Phantom plus, third Phantom. Her body flicked out of the person's view. Wah! Both Madison and Lyrica cried out in surprise when they saw how fast they were going. Dashing over the roofs with incredible speed, they were surprised that hardly anyone could spot them. Naturally, Shiro couldn't keep this up for long. Landing not too far away from the dorms, Shiro let the duo back on the ground. Breathing out heavily, she calmed her heart rate. Seems like using 3 out of the 5 phantoms at once is still a little harsh on the body. Shiro thought as she could feel soreness from her body. So far, she had experienced using 4 of the phantoms: illusionary phantom, speed phantom, counterweight phantom, and internal feasting phantom. She hadn't had the chance to use the final phantom, the soul-stealing phantom, due to the fact that this phantom needed her to abandon all thoughts of defense, trading blow for blow. The 5th phantom was most suited in fights against humans and not monsters. Holy Shiro, what the hell was that? Madison asked as she nearly fell because her legs were soft from the experience. Martial arts. Bullsh asterisk T. Madison replied almost instantly. She had never seen martial arts that allowed her to escape someone's attention, as well as make people ignore the fact that a small girl was dragging 2 teens by the waist. No, it's true. This is the type of martial arts I use. I used it a lot in the event along with fighting the boss. If you remember, when I tanked the boss with you, I was using the 3rd stance/move of my martial arts to redirect the attacks. Shiro typed out. She wasn't surprised at her confusion since she too understood that this martial art was very advanced. Even now, with her memorizing everything that Fei Ling demonstrated, she was still at a rudimentary level of understanding. Since it's martial arts, can we learn it? Madison asked with slight excitement. I don't think it fits your style. I managed to learn it since I met the minimum requirements. If you perform the martial art incorrectly, it would cause more harm than good. Shiro replied seriously. Seeing how serious Shiro was being, they knew she wasn't kidding. Shiro, as a person, was very generous in their eyes. She never shied away from sharing goods or helping them out. She didn't ask for compensation and helped them of her own volition. So her warnings had to be taken seriously. Ah, such a shame then. Madison shrugged her shoulders. Don't worry about it. You can easily develop your own fighting style. Madison, you've already started developing yours. Same with you, Lyrica. Shiro smiled. I'll go to the Mages Association and get the ice heart. You two can head back first. All right. Take care, Shiro. See you later, Shiro. Leaving for the Mages Association, Shiro saw an off influx of people walking towards the blacksmith's area. Did someone make a good piece of gear or something? Why are there so many people? Shiro thought. Making a note to visit the blacksmith's area after the Mages Association, Shiro thought about how she should scam them. Wait, it should be within my rights as the top 10 to get the item. Why am I bargaining with them? I should be allowed it since it's my privilege. Thinking of this, Shiro grinned. Arriving at the Mages Association, Shiro could already feel most of the eyes turned towards her. Ignoring the strange mixture of gazes of fear, anger, delight, and surprise, Shiro walked towards the receptionist. May I order an item? She asked. Yes. What do you need? The receptionist asked. She didn't need to use the computer to know who Shiro was since she's been pretty famous amongst the mages in the guild recently. She was in rank 1 for people you don't want to piss off. The **** destroying princess. I would like to order the item, Ice Heart, along with 5 ice spirit essences. You want the item Ice Heart and 5 ice spirit essences? The receptionist asked, just to make sure she read that right. While the ice spirit essences weren't too difficult, the Ice Heart was another problem. There was only 1 Ice Heart in the Mages Association, and it seemed to be in the possession of the branch leader. Yes, that is what I wrote. I do believe that it is within my rights as the top 10 in the priority list to be allowed to order items that will assist me. A sly grin crept up on Shiro's face as she too knew the difficulty of acquiring the Ice Heart, which was why she never intended to find it herself and instead let the Mages Association find it for her. I'll have to get the branch leader for you, the receptionist said as she quickly left to pass this bundle of trouble to him instead. Waiting patiently, Shiro didn't have to wait long for Mark to arrive on the scene. So it seems like we should discuss this in another room, Mark said whilst looking at the little devil in front of him. Sure. Walking to another room, Shiro sat down on a chair and crossed her legs. Resting on her lap, Shiro looked at Mark and waited for him to start the conversation. Taking a deep breath, Mark looked at Shiro. The 5 ice spirit essences are not a problem, which I believe you know yourself. I do. But the ice heart is a little harder to acquire for you, Mark said with seriousness. Yes, but that's only if we consider the fact that you find a second one. Don't you possess a perfectly good one in your inventory? Shiro grinned. Mark could already feel a pinch creeping up to his heart. He still remembers the pain of her ripping the 30 ice cores from the stock, and now she wanted the only ice heart they had. Who was it that said, and I quote, "You get access to tomes, materials, and skill simulations." Shiro grinned as she had an amazing memory. She still remembers what he had said when she asked him about the privileges of VIP. Indeed I have, but that only applies to materials you can get, Mark said, playing it off. And yet you have an ice heart that you don't use. Therefore, it is a material I can get, and it falls into my right of acquiring the material. I may have use for it. No, you don't. How are you so sure? Because if you did, you would have used it already. The ice heart is primarily used as a material to upgrade an elemental base class. You most likely acquired the ice heart for your dual element mage, and yet, when you found out the elements you had were lighting and fire, you had no more use of the item. Shiro typed out, guessing the situation from her knowledge. Perhaps, Mark replied. She's correct. He had initially obtained the ice heart to become a fire and ice dual element mage, and yet, he had awakened lightning and fire attunements for his dual mage class. The sad part was that he couldn't use it for his next class up either. All his effort used to acquire the ice heart was shattered with a single realization of his attunement. And now, I imagine the other top rankers would not take it too kindly if they found out that they may be rejected of their privilege, even though the branch master has no use for the item. Plus, I need it for a star-up requirement, so more reasons for you to give it to me. Shiro grinned. URG. Mark made a difficult face as he could actually imagine that happening. The thought of losing benefits may cause unease amongst the priority list. Switching between the faces of agony and helplessness, he pulled out an item that looked like an intricately engraved orb of ice. Just take it, and please don't come back, he said, feeling his heart being crushed into several pieces. You forgot the 5 ice spirit essences. URG. Here, please just leave, he said, passing her the items. Thank you. Don't worry, I'll come back after another 5 levels. Shiro chuckled slightly. Please don't come back, you devil, Mark cried out in his mind. On top of the fact that he needed to give her the item because of his job, he also had to give it to her due to the order of his young master. With the order of assisting her when he could, he had no other choice but to give her the ice heart. The feeling of biting a chunk out of your total wealth for an item, only to find out you can't use it, followed by the fact that you need to give it to a little devil, was a feeling that crushed Mark's heart. It was just one scam after another. He entered as a normal man before leaving as a broken one. Walking out of the Mages Association with the item she needed, she was only short of 93D ranked mana stones for her 3rd star up. Walking towards Helian's shop, Shiro was rather surprised at how many people were gathered here. By estimates, it was roughly twice as much as usual. Walking towards the back door that Helion had shown her a while back, Shiro bypassed the queue and walking into his workshop. When one of the customers saw her, he immediately froze up and dashed out the shop. Shiro, honestly, this is becoming quite a love-hate relationship, Helion said, sitting back on his chair. You don't mind the customer leaving? Shiro asked. Oh no, I do mind. That is if they weren't asking for an ASS plate. I haven't made anything else for so long, Helion complained, pulling at his hair angrily. At the start of the new business boom, all was fine. But when he had to make several hundreds of ass plates that soon reached the thousands, he was getting a little annoyed. And now, he literally made nothing else for so many days that he felt like he was going insane. If this makes things better, I want to commission a few weapons. Tell me what you want, and I'll make it right. King now, Helion said instantly, grasping at the chance to make something other than an ass plate. What I need is a level 25 and 2 level 30 set armor, a level 25 and level 30 pair of swords and shields. Shiro typed out. Now normally I would have probably done everything separately, but just for you, and the fact that ass plates are driving me insane, I'll do it all in one go. Describe them to me. Helion said as he pulled out a notepad and pencil. For the armor, the level 25 must be defensive-orientated as it is meant for a tanker. However, it must also hold some attacking capabilities since she is a mixed tanker. She can act as both attack and defense. For level 30s, one of them should be a mix like the level 25, and the other one should be only speed and power focused. As for the sword and shield, just make them as best you can with both attack and defense in mind. So I'm guessing that one is for the Madison girl and the other for the elf? I'm honestly surprised that you're already asking for level 25 and 30 armors for them, Helion said as he started to sketch. Well, I took them to a level 30 dungeon and leveled them up. Ha ha ha, that's just like you. Taking them into a dangerous dungeon to level up. Helion chuckled. Finishing his sketches, he showed them to Shiro. How is this? If I started to make them now, it'll take me around a day or two to make them all, Helion said. We're not in too much of a hurry, so it's fine. How much do I have to pay? The Assplate business boom gave me more than enough materials and money to last me a few months. Don't worry about it. And before you say anything, just know that this business boom is due to a certain tendency of yours, Helion said before Shiro could reject his offer. Fine. Just text me when the items are done. Shiro typed out. All right. Just give me a second, Helion said, standing up. Walking out of the store, he saw the queue of people waiting and could only give up on this business opportunity. All right, guy, listen up. I got a big commission, so if you want plates, go look for someone else for now, he shouted out. Closing the shutters, he ignored cries of injustice. Well, I should make a start on the armors now, Helion said with a smile. I'll leave you to it. See you later. See ya, Shiro. Leaving the store, Shiro made her way back to the dorms. Returning to her room, she sighed, seeing a certain figure floating near the window. Giving Shiro a wave, Nantion gestured at the window. Pulling up a chair, Shiro sat down with her legs crossed. Resting her head on her hand, she pulled her phone out and started typing one letter at a time. You should be able to open that window yourself, right? Why are you waiting for me to open it? Shiro asked. Well, I wouldn't be a gentleman if I didn't wait for your permission, would I? Nantion chuckled while opening the window. And you stalking a little girl is being gentlemanly? Shiro raised an eyebrow. Well, if you put it that way, then it's not gentlemanly at all. But unlike a certain someone, I don't watch you while you sleep, do I? Nantion laughed. You are both you and him are the same in my eyes. Stalker to the bone. Shiro rolled her eyes. But would you rather a gentlemanly stalker or a creepy stalker? Nantion asked as he sat on her windowsill. Like I said, both are the same in my eyes. But enough about your creepy tendencies. Tell me, what are you here for? Shiro asked. What am I here for? Would hanging out with a friend need a reason? Yes. Tisk, fine. Let's just say you should be careful. This city might take a beating in a few days, and that might even be the best case scenario. In the worst case scenario, it may start as early as tomorrow. Take a beating? What I mean by that is a group known as the Black Monarchy has a ritual being set up in this city. As for the contents of the ritual, I have no idea, Nantion said with a serious face. Black Monarchy? Sounds edgy. Ha ha ha, yes. Yes, it does. Nantion laughed. He found it amusing how she wasn't focused on the citywide threat, but instead, the fact that their group title is edgy. You aren't curious about the ritual they are holding? He asked. I am. But what can I even do? If they're planning a ritual in this city, then it's not something a level 35 like me can stop. The most I'll do is give my friends a warning about it, and nothing else. Plus, with you and other factions in the city, we should be relatively safe. Shiro shrugged. True. Also, can't you pinpoint their location? If you look at the ritual areas you've discovered so far, you can reverse draft a ritual diagram and find out the activation sequence. Disrupt that correctly, and you stop the ritual. Nantion was taken back by her line. But how would you even know what kind of ritual they're planning? Nantion asked curiously. He had his own idea but was curious to what Shiro had thought about it. Well, it's kind of obvious. Once you find a few of the base nodes, you'll be able to reverse guess the type of ritual. First off, you need to know the types of rituals. The most common ones being an attack, defense, summon/sacrifice, and totem rituals. Let me ask this first. How big is the ritual, and how long has it been since the start of their preparation? Shiro asked. I'd say it covers around 60 to 70% of New York City, and that they've probably started for almost a month, I would guess. Nantion replied. Well, then it's a totem ritual. Shiro rolled her eyes. It was very easy to guess what type of ritual based on prep and the size of the ritual. With the size being 60 to 70% of the city with a preparation of 1 month, then the only option would be totem ritual. Why totem? Why not attack ritual? Nantion asked curiously. Well, since you've discovered tracks due to your estimates, it means they also know. If an attack ritual really took 70% of the city, the materials required would be astronomical. Not to mention, the conditions of an attack ritual is stringent, and with you in hot pursuit, they wouldn't be dumb enough to continue with such a strict ritual. Therefore, it could only mean it's a totem ritual. If it is as you say, then the only problem left is what kind of totem they're making. Nantion sighed as he leaned back. So why are you telling me this? Like I said, it's to warn you. Get your friends out of the city or something before anything begins. URG. Read carefully, would you? I wrote why. So give me your reason as to why you are warning me. You can guess yourself? Nantion replied. I can already imagine this asshole grinning, Shiro thought, pulling an annoyed face. Seeing her face, Nantion took it as a cue to stop for now. Well, since I did what I wanted to do, I'll leave for now. Before you go, does the governor of this city know? And if so, are they planning an evacuation procedure? Yes, they do. And the evacuation procedures are underway. All right, you can go now. Shiro waved her hand dismissively. AI, so hurtful to your future sect branch master. Nantion sighed with a shake of his head. Flickering away, Shiro only rolled her eyes. There wasn't any point to warning Lyrica and Madison about the ritual. The only thing it'll do is serve to add stress. With the higher-ups already planning everything out, Shiro decided that she shouldn't meddle with it and add more variables to their plans. ####. The next day, Madison and Lyrica followed Shiro since they were going to be spectating her fight this round. After their quick elimination last round, they had nothing else to do. See if you can learn anything from the fights. Shiro typed out simply. There wasn't really any secret to getting better at fighting other than to experience more fights and learn from others. That was it. All right, we'll cheer you on. Lyrica smiled before walking to the spectator stands. Walking towards the main plaza, Shiro waited for her spot to be assigned. Seeing a sign that says, "Those who are waiting for slots, please check in here," she immediately knew where to go. Well, that sign says plenty, Shiro thought. Queuing up at the booth, she didn't need to wait too long for her turn to arrive. "May I have your golden badge as proof, please?" the receptionist said. Nodding her head, Shiro handed over the badge. "Hello, Miss Shiro. You'll be assigned to Area C, Slot 210. She replied whilst giving back the badge. "Thank you." Looking at the signs that are scattered around the place, Shiro found Area C without much difficulty, especially considering the fact that there is a huge banner with a C painted on looming over the area. Finding her way to Slot 210, she saw the mini arena she had to be put in. The arena itself reminded her of gladiatorial arenas due to the fact that the main area itself was surrounded by several gateways. I'm guessing that these gateways will dispense the puppets that will be attacking me in waves, Shiro thought to herself. Walking up to the arena, she saw a device stuck to the side of the entrance of her arena. Insert badge to confirm attendance. She reached out and inserted the badge as the device instructed. *bing. A soft ring rang out as the panel lit up with a green light. Attendance has been confirmed. Please enter the arena and wait for the round to start. I guess having key panels that instruct the people will save them a lot of manpower, Shiro thought whilst entering the arena. Looking at it from the inside was different compared to looking at it from the outside. Only from the inside did she realize how much space she actually had. With such a limited amount of space, It'll be a pain trying to get a moment of rest between the fights. She analyzed. With space like this, even if she used large-scale magic, it would get filled up in no time. As Shiro stepped into the arena, a camera lit up to broadcast her participation. Nan Tian, that girl had entered the arena, Huan Air reported. Currently, they were on the roof of the skyscraper. Ho, pass me the tablet. I'll watch it while we work. Nan Tian said with slight anticipation. Nodding her head whilst feeling annoying inside, she handed him the tablet. Little Snow should be able to hold her own against the puppets, but the problem comes with her physical attributes. The level 50s have an advantage over her in terms of stats and stamina. I wonder how she'll fare in this round, he thought, looking at the live feed of her arena. Meanwhile, Madison and Lyrica were looking at the participants list. When they saw Shiro's name light up, they immediately tapped it and watched the broadcast. Hey Maddie, how well do you think Shiro will do? Lyrica asked. How well? I'd say around mid to low, since the level 50s have ridiculous stats compared to her. Madison replied, analyzing the chances of Shiro's victory. Really? I'd say she'd be mid to high. Why? Well, because she has great stamina, doesn't she? Have you seen her tire herself out when fighting monsters? The only time we see that is when she uses her martial arts a lot. But other than that, we've seen her fight at full capacity for more than an hour. In my opinion, Shiro's strength lies in stamina conservation along with sudden bursts of attack power. Lyrica explained. Madison paused in shock, seeing a sudden burst of wisdom from Lyrica. Blinking twice to make sure she wasn't hallucinating, she wondered about what just happened. Well, people tend to have odd moments of intelligence at random times. Madison thought. So you believe that she'll outlast the level 50s? Yes. That's because of the fact that they're level 50. With large stats, there is an equal amount of energy usage. They are like engines that go from 0 to 100% power with each attack. It'll tire them out quickly, whereas Shiro is an engine that keeps a constant 70% output and can change to different output values depending on what she wants to do. Naturally, this only works if you consider Shiro's already huge stamina pool and her fine control of her body. Anyone else, and they definitely rank lower compared to the level 50s. Lyrica concluded. When have you ever talked this much? Madison muttered. When it comes to Shiro, I always talk this much. Lyrica smiled. Ignoring the fact that Lyrica seemed to have had a strategist possess her for a moment, they waited for the commentator to start the round. Welcome all. Today, we have the survival test for our adventurers. Each adventurer will have to fight against waves of puppets that are matched to their level. Ranks will be determined by how long you actually survive for. To make things fair, all of the puppets will level up after a certain amount of time for every participant. However, even though we have a surprise contestant that is underleveled, we'll keep the puppets at level 50 even for her. The commentator said. Madison and Lyrica frowned, hearing this, as Shiro was only level 35. With the puppets being 15 levels higher than her, it was going to be a hard fight. Level 50, huh? Seems like I'll have to focus my attention on making the puppets hurt each other, Shiro thought with a frown. With the introduction finished, let the round start. Gururururu. The sound of marching could be heard as the puppets slowly walked out of the gates. Looking at the puppets, Shiro pulled forwards her hood. KSH. The puppets readied their weapon and charged towards her. Fast, Shiro thought with a frown. In-style Phantom Arts, third Phantom, counterweight Phantom. Crouching down, she grabbed one of the spears a puppet held and pulled it towards her. Bang. Slamming her palm into the puppet's torso, Shiro sent it crashing back with all of the momentum it carried. Quickly bending backwards, Shiro avoided a swipe from another puppet. Looking around her, she saw several chances to counter the puppet's attack. She narrowed her eyes before trapping one of the spears between her calf and thigh. Flipping her body whilst using the staff as a base, she kicked the puppet in the face. Ban. With a single twirl of the spear, she slapped the incoming spears away. I need a little bit of space, Shiro thought quickly. Gathering mana at the tip of the spear, she slammed it into the ground. CRRR. Ice spread out with her in the center and froze the puppet's legs. Whilst this was happening, Shiro was already thinking 2 steps ahead. Freezing up a blade on the edge of the spear, Shiro kicked the body of the spear whilst holding the pommel. The force caused the spear to swing in a wide arch, making sure to amplify the speed. Shiro twisted her body to increase the momentum. Asterisk bang. The spear broke halfway through the attack, causing Shiro to curse in her mind. With the sudden gap in defense, the puppets charged at her with increased vigor. Tisk. Shiro clicked her tongue seeing this predicament. Gathering mana into her palm, she slammed a ball of lightning into the ground. Asterisk bzzz. The lightning traveled through the ice and into the body of the puppets. While they were still shocked, Shiro made a handful of ice daggers. She jumped up and twisted her body horizontally whilst simultaneously throwing the daggers. Asterisk boom boom boom. Colliding accurately with the head of the puppets, the sudden explosion of the daggers sent them stumbling backwards. Landing back on the ground, Shiro wasn't happy that the puppets were set in a way that was harder for her to take advantage of their large numbers. They were spread out just far enough so that they weren't interfering with each other, while also being just close enough to attack her at the same time. Since that's the case, this Missy will come to you. Dashing towards the group of puppets, Shiro tilted her head and avoided the staff whistling towards her face. Pulling on the staff, she tripped the puppet over before using it as a shield. Asterisk done. Blocking the staff attacks, she flipped the puppet over her before grabbing the 2 staffs. Lifting her body up, she kicked both puppets in the face before backflipping. While she was in the air, her mind scanned the entire battlefield and planned a few steps ahead. Crouching down the moment she landed, Shiro aimed both palms outwards as ice spears shot out and pierced the head of the puppets. Rolling to the side, she avoided the attacks of new puppets that joined the fray. Slamming her palms into the ground, she skewered all of the puppets and suspended them into the air. Suddenly feeling danger behind her, Shiro turned around and hastily made an ice shield. URG. A muffled cry escaped her lips as the attack shattered the ice shield that she made quickly. If it wasn't for the fact that she's predicting their movements and acting 2 steps ahead, she would have long been buried under their attacks. The speed of level 50s weren't something she could react to straight away. She had to plan and predict. What happened then was a testament on how thin of a line she was currently stepping on. One mistake, and she was almost eliminated. Sliding across the ground, Shiro could already feel her tempo being interrupted. Quickly jumping up, she made a small platform to stand on. Taking a short break, she examined the arena. However, she wasn't able to observe for long as the puppets started to throw their spears at her. OF*CK, Shiro thought as she quickly dropped down from her platform. Kicking off the wall, she avoided the massive staffs waiting to attack her. She landed on the ground and slid for a short moment before stopping. Leaving a small trail of ice, Shiro flicked her wrist as the ice expanded outwards. Seeing her prep done, she grinned and flicked her wrist upwards. Before the attack even hit, Lyrica and Nantion already knew what was going to happen. Asterisk bang bang bang. Spears of ice pierced upwards, skewering the puppets and suspended them in midair. For the people who were spectating her at that moment, the sight made them pucker their assholes in fear. With her attack, Shiro was able to have a brief moment of rest to regain her tempo. Watching the puppets fade, she knew the next wave was coming. Waving her hand, Shiro set up a few traps scattered around the arena. These traps would help her control the crowd and limit the number of puppets that can attack her. Within a few seconds, the next wave of puppets had already appeared and ready to attack Shiro. Pulling a serious face, Shiro clasped her hands as ice jaws sprang up from the ground. Asterisk bang. As expected, the trap wasn't able to harm the puppets too much since they were able to block the jaws. However, the jaws had already played their part. Dashing towards the crowd, Shiro made 2 ice swords and slashed at the puppets who were busy dealing with holding the jaws apart. Asterisk bam. The moment she killed the puppets, the jaw slammed shut due to the puppets not being able to hold it open. Pivoting on her foot, she dodged the spears that attacked her from behind. She had to make sure that she's always 2 steps ahead of the level 50 puppets, or else she'll be eliminated easily. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. Wow, why do I feel like Shiro knows everything that's happening? Madison muttered in awe of Shiro's performance. Prediction, I believe. I remember Shiro trying to teach me how to perform like how she does. Lyrica replied. She what? Where was I? I need these lessons too. Well, it's really hard and your reactions must be fast. Basically, what she does is she runs several prediction lines on where the enemies may walk to, make solutions for them, and proceed to make more prediction lines. Every time a new situation arises, Shiro would make a simulation in her mind. Naturally, she can't get all of the situations, but just the sheer number she can predict is still incredible. Her brain is almost like a computer, constantly updating with simulations of the events and reacting to them before making new simulations right after. Lyrica boasted slightly. Surely not, Madison said as she almost couldn't believe it. However, she couldn't deny what she was seeing right now. Shiro was almost like a prophet. Her body moves away from the attacks before they could even make a move. It's true. How else do you think Shiro is keeping up with the speed of the level 50 puppets? While they may be weaker than normal level 50s due to the fact that they're just puppets, the sheer number and level difference are enough to overwhelm anyone. But then wouldn't that make Shiro a computer or something? Being able to do that much while also fighting isn't normal in the least. It's freaking abnormal. When was Shiro ever normal, though? Lyrica asked. She was pretty used to seeing Shiro perform abnormal feats. It was to the point that she would feel off if Shiro did something normal, as it wouldn't be Shiro anymore. I suppose. She was never one for normality, was she? Madison chuckled. So I know that she simulates, but we can't do that. So how did she suggest you learn? Madison asked. She suggested that I just memorize their positions. Memorize the current layout of the battle and their positions, so I always keep a mental note of where they are. Goodness, that's not exactly the easiest either. If it was easy, then everyone could do it. Lyrica chuckled since there was no easy path. What Shiro told them was about as simple as it was going to get. The rest depended on how well they performed. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. Deploying level 51 puppets. Hearing the loudspeakers notify everyone of the increase in level, Shiro narrowed her eyes. Level 51 puppets were going to be much harder than level 50 puppets since their strength had entered the C rank. With their Tier 3 strength equivalent of one's 3rd class up, their stats could easily squash the stats of a level 50. Asterisk boom. A fist suddenly slammed against the ground as huge puppets could be seen climbing out of the gates. Heavy power type puppet, huh? Seems like I'll need to kill them straight away, Shiro thought. Seeing that she was allowed a moment to breathe due to the power-type puppet blocking the way, Shiro stomped down hard. A magic circle erupted out from beneath her, while the surrounding area became encased in ice. This might be pushing it a little, Shiro thought as her body was already reacting negatively to the ability she was going to use. Ice coagulated around her body as it hardened around her shin, forearms, shoulder, and head. Pseudo-elemental armor. Since her ice attunement had reached Tier 2 in strength, she was able to formulate the beginning of her true elemental armor. However, due to the fact that her broken links were still unrepaired, she was behind everyone in her formation of elemental armor. Even now, she could feel that it was a little too early for her. But, if I don't get my body used to the pain, then it will never adapt to this, Shiro thought, clutching her fists. Her desire to repair her broken links were strong, but she was helpless. The few ways she knew of repairing her links were too difficult for her to access right now, and to top it all off, she had no idea if they were even available in the current world. So many new concepts had been discovered here that Shiro wasn't sure if they existed anymore. Different worlds, different time, and different concepts. What she thought exists might not exist. Therefore, she couldn't repair her broken links anytime soon. She had to scour the world to find these methods of repairing her body. When the magic circle settled down, her ice amour could be seen glistening in the sunlight. They were colored pale blue while a small crown could be seen on her head. In her hands were spiked ice chains that wrapped around her forearms. Moving her arms around a little, Shiro realized she could extend the chains and retract them with her mana. Nodding to herself, she looked up and saw that she was just in time since the puppets had just escaped the gateway. Crouching down, Shiro narrowed her eyes and flung the spike chains to the power-type puppets. Asterisk ding ding. Deflecting the chains easily, Shiro wasn't surprised since she had expected this to happen. Since the chains were the result of her magic, it meant that she could adjust them however she wanted. Flicking her wrist, the tips of the chains morphed into claws that grabbed the puppet's hands. Style Phantom Arts, second Phantom plus third Phantom. She pulled on the chains and launched her body towards the puppet. Making a spike on the bottom of her foot, Shiro pierced the frontal lobe of the puppet. Twisting her body clockwise, she exploded the spike to destroy the head of the puppet. While she was doing this, she made sure the composition of the spike was strong enough to pierce the puppet's outer shell. After destroying the head, she weakened the joints before ripping the arms off and slammed them against the other puppets to push them back. With the power-type puppet dead, she had dealt with the biggest threat. Quickly turning off her elemental armor before it drains more MP needlessly from her, she looked around at the wave. However, she couldn't even look for long when a fist was about to collide with her face. Quickly making the decision of trading blow for blow, Shiro used the third Phantom. The moment the fist collided with her face, she twisted her body, redirected the force through her leg and roundhouse kicked the puppet in the head. Asterisk boom. The force caused both Shiro and the puppet to be sent back as Shiro slid on her feet. Feeling the sting on her face, Shiro was livid. "Oi asshole, did you never learn to not punch a lady in the face?" Shiro growled with anger in her eyes. While she knew the puppets had no will of its own, that doesn't mean the conjurer of the puppets were the same. They obviously could have hit her torso or stomach, but instead went for the face. However, as angry as she was, she knew her limits. Fighting more would only make her sustain even more needless injuries. Barely dodging a few attacks from the puppets, Shiro walked over to the entrance and pushed the give up button. Asterisk BRRNN. The green light turned red as all the puppets stopped in their tracks. Contestant Shiro has given up. Please leave the arena and await further instructions in the main plaza. Slightly massaging her body, Shiro left her arena. If I find out who the hell made that puppet punch me in the face, I'll make sure they don't have a lower half. Shiro cursed. Walking towards the main plaza, she was stopped by a few staff members. "Miss Shiro, the organizer would like to have a short chat with you," the staff said, handing her a small projection device. Raising an eyebrow, Shiro pulled out her phone. "Do I call the organizer, or he call me?" Shiro asked. However, before they could even reply, the device started to vibrate with a slight green light. The staff members gestured for her to answer the call. "Hello, Miss Shiro, how goes your day?" A figure, who was shadowed out, said. Shiro made an emotionless face, as they should know she couldn't speak by now. Typing on her phone, she held it against the camera. "You should know that I'm mute, right?" "No, but I do now." The silhouette chuckled slightly. "Since you're mute, you can just listen to what I have to say. First of all, I would like to apologize. The initial plan was to have you fight against enemies that were scaled to your level. However, we had received several requests from the factions asking for you to be pitted against the level 50 puppet. They wanted to see your potential against level 50 opponents since you had the capabilities to reach this stage. I would also like to apologize for my staff's conduct when controlling the puppets. I could see from your face that you weren't so pleased with the fact that she aimed for your face rather than body. We'll make sure to give her a warning." Shiro nodded when she heard this. While she still wasn't pleased, she knew that she shouldn't take things too far. "Now with those two out of the way, I would now like to congratulate you on your success of reaching this round. The reason I want to congratulate you is because we, the government, and the organizers of this event would like to scout you out to join our ranks. With factions and different solo adventurers out and about, we need to have a ruling authority to keep things peaceful for the weaker people who are living in the world. Because without the government, the factions are free to do whatever they want. If the wrong faction takes over a town, how do you think the civilians will live? Therefore, we need to have the manpower and the talents to keep the world safe for the weaker people. And that is why we want to scout you out. We want your help to keep public order in check. Not interested. The only reason I'm joining this event is to help my friends out and not to join a faction. Shiro declined bluntly. Sure, she may applaud them for her efforts. However, she wasn't going to restrain her freedom for the greater good. No, she wasn't that generous. I see. Then I hope Miss Shiro will at least try not to cause trouble. With a certain habit of yours, and the fact that the videos have become rather popular on the net, a lot of warriors and mages are buying ass plates to protect themselves. A sudden shift in the market almost made a few blacksmiths bankrupt. Therefore, I do hope you keep certain habits to yourself and instead direct them to the monsters, the man said before closing the call. Shiro raised an eyebrow before giving the device back to the staff members. Thank you for your time, they said before leaving. Littleine. Seems like I'll have to hit other weak points for a while, Shiro muttered, feeling slightly annoyed. It was like when a smoker couldn't smoke. There was this irritating itch now that Shiro knew she should stop exposing her attacking method. Asterisk chirp. Een slapped her wing against Shiro's shoulder, pulling a face that says, "You should have done that from the start." Chuckling slightly, Shiro rubbed Yin's head before tucking her back into her hood. Walking into the main plaza, Shiro wasn't surprised to see that she was one of the early ones to be eliminated from the round. Looking for a ledge that fits the requirements of a good Psy line as well as being inconspicuous, she crouched down and jumped up to it without much hassle. Swinging her legs, Shiro searched a few flute compositions to listen to. Let's see. 1 hour calming flute compilation seems alright, Shiro thought as she pressed on the video. Glancing around to make sure that nothing was looking at her, she hid her hand behind her back. Metal and lightning sparked for a moment as Shiro created a pair of wireless earbuds. Connecting her phone to her earbuds, she closed her eyes and listened to the music. The gentle melody made her rock her head and swing her legs in tune. Tapping her fingers, Shiro's brain worked to single out the notes, how it fluctuated, and the length of each note. She had an idea on how to help her play the flute better. While it may not have emotions and the such, she'll be able to play it like a machine or robot. Her idea was for her to play all the notes of her ice flute and memorize how she played each of the notes, the changes, and the lengths. Next, she would match it up to a song composition she heard. By following the composition like a program, she'll be able to hone a basic grasp of how the flute would play out. Listening to the songs play, Shiro enjoyed the melody whilst closing her eyes. And the round is over, the commentator shouted out at the top of his voice. The sudden disturbance made Shiro frown. This was one of the things that just pressed her buttons the wrong way. Pulling her earbuds out of her ears, Shiro crushed them in her palms and reduced them back to mana. Supporting her body just on her hands, Shiro pushed herself back to the main plaza. Landing with a soft thud, she waited to listen to what the commentator had to say. With this round finished, those of you who have not reached the top 50 are eliminated. Similar to what happened the previous round, you are able to go to the stalls and apply to the faction you want to go to. For the people not inside the top 50, please follow our staff to the recruitment area. For those in the top 50, stay behind and await further instructions. Seeing the staff gesturing everyone through the gate, Shiro pulled up her face mask and hood before following the crowd. She wasn't going to look for a faction just yet, as she was going to go look for one with Lyrica and Madison. After all this effort wasn't for her to join a faction, but rather to guarantee that Lyrica and Madison get enough benefits for when they join one instead. Unfortunately for her, before she could even go look for Lyrica and Madison, several of the faction members had already spotted her and made a small circle around her. While they weren't the more important higher-ups, it seemed like they were the ones tasked with recruiting her. Miss Shiro, our faction the Luna's Wake will ga. Our faction the Opal Tri-Dash. They're just low-ranked factions. The faction I'm a part of, Radiance Anvil, is much higher ranked than the other factions. Seeing the mass of recruiters pushing and shoving to tell her about how good their faction was, Shiro got a little annoyed since they were inching a little too close to her. Enough! A voice filled with authority roared out as a sudden miniature blizzard washed over the recruiters. With the blizzard both literally and figuratively cooling them down, they looked towards the source of the voice. The owner was a woman who looked like she was in her mid-30s. She had long blonde hair and violet pupils. Her body proportions were comparable to women in their 20s. However, what shocked the recruiters more was the fact that she was an executive from one of the top 5 in the factions at this event. Winter's Grace. Freya LVL? Ice Archwizard. Why are you behaving like immature children? She said with a frown. The recruiters backed off slightly at her glare. Shiro sighed in relief as she was able to get some room to breathe. Miss Shiro, our faction would like to invite you to become a core member of our faction, she said immediately as she saw the other recruiters back off slightly. Winter's Grace may be a good place for Lyrica and Madison. Not only can I find more ways to use my magic, but both Lyrica and Madison can also have access to more supplies. Shiro thought. I'm sorry. I have a few requirements of my own. Is it okay if we discussed it? Yes, that is no problem. Follow me and we'll go discuss it, Freya said with a smile. Before she had come here, she had made sure to do her research. Therefore, seeing her type on her phone wasn't surprising. I'll have to bring my friends since they're needed for this discussion. Okay. Shall I follow you, or should we meet up somewhere? She asked. How about we talk this out at a restaurant? Shiro suggested, showing Freya a restaurant that offered private rooms. All right. I just hope I won't have to wait too long. Freya chuckled. You won't. I'll get my friends and we'll be there right away. Then while you do that dash. Hold it. A voice cut Freya off as she frowned. Turning around, they could see a young man in his 20s. He had black hair tied into a low ponytail, sharp features, and an overall thin build. What do you want, Shattered Scum? First come, first serve, Freya said with a frown. The man in question was a member of Shattered Dynasty. Hwach in LVL? Constellation Spearman. First come serve? Sure, that's right. But don't you know that patience is a virtue? Better offers may come later. He smiled. Patience is indeed a virtue. But our young master wants her. Are you willing to fight against him for her? A husky voice called out. Looking over, they saw a cloaked man with only his eyes visible. Kaldar LVL? Ashblade. TSK. You Shadow Temple members are always arrogant. Hwachin retorted. The three glared at each other as each of them wanted to recruit Shiro to their faction. The girl in question was almost expressionless. Annoying. Kaldar is probably part of that stalker's faction. Shattered Dynasty isn't what I want, so probably Freya is the best pick. Shiro thought. While she wasn't going to join the faction, she still wanted to make sure she got benefits as well. Flicking her wrist, she pulled out a small piece of paper. Writing, "Meet me at the restaurant in 20 minutes. On the paper, Shiro folded it up. While the three were arguing at who was better for her to join, she used First Phantom and snuck the paper into Freya's hand. Freya paused for a moment as she felt contact, then smiled slightly as she realized Shiro chose her. What are you smiling at? At the fact that your Shattered Dynasty lost to our Winter's Grace a few days back, she retorted. While the three were baring their teeth at each other, no one realized a certain girl missing. Shiro was already on her way to look for Lyrica and Madison. Littleine, you think I should mess Shadow Temple up to get some revenge and call it even with the stalker? Shiro asked. Een made a shrugging motion since it wasn't her problem. AI, so unhelpful. What do I even keep you around for? Shiro asked with a slight chuckle. Asterisk chirp. Een protested by slapping Shiro's chest. Ha ha ha. Only joking, Shiro replied whilst rubbing Yin's head. Feeling the touch, Een closed her eyes and enjoyed the sensation. Shiro, where are you two? Lyrica, we're at the entrance area. Shiro, coming right now. Turning the corner, Shiro made her way to the entrance area. Lyrica waved the moment she saw Shiro. Hey, get ready since in 15 to 20 minutes, we'll be discussing important matters with the recruiter of Winter's Grace. Shiro smiled. PFT. Winter's Grace? Madison replied shocked. She never expected that Shiro would be able to draw the attention of the Big Five. Well, perhaps she did, but seeing it was another matter in itself. We're going to be negotiating for benefits. Mainly for you two with me as the bargaining chip. Wouldn't a smaller faction be better then? Lyrica asked. Yes and no. A smaller faction would have no guarantee and less resources to give you. Bigger factions, while having less resources per person, has better quality. But wouldn't the competition be fiercer? Madison asked, which is why we're negotiating. So I'm guessing that we are negotiating for stable resources. Lyrica guessed. We're both negotiating for stable resources and more freedom in the faction. If we don't get freedom, we can easily ignore the negotiations and leave. Since they want me to join, we have the upper hand in the discussion. Shiro smiled slyly. She was going to make sure she wrung Freya dry of her benefits before accepting. Only more, no less. I'll do the texting and you guys watch, okay? Shiro smiled. All right. Walking to the restaurant, Shiro saw Freya waiting by the side. Giving Shiro a light wave, she led them inside the private room she had asked the restaurant to set up earlier. Sitting down, Freya made a mental note of both Lyrica and Madison. Their classes are definitely out of the ordinary. If I can get these two as well, she thought. As I have stated before, my friends are needed for this discussion. Yes, you have. And why are they important for this? She asked, acting as if their class wasn't anything special. Since Shiro was the one she needed to recruit, she knew she had the upper hand. Therefore, she needed to try to pull the terms in her favor. Understanding what Freya wanted, Shiro only smiled since her initial impression worked. Now she just needed to make sure the rest of this negotiation goes smoothly. They are important since I will not be the one joining. They will. I keep a strict policy on not restricting my freedom. However, I am also not against connections. Shiro typed out leisurely. What I want is for my friends to join the faction in my stead. However, I will be assisting the faction when I can while not joining as a member. Freya narrowed her eyes slightly. While receiving Lyrica and Madison as members would be good, her main task was still to recruit Shiro. I'm afraid that might be a little hard on my side. You should know that my main goal is to recruit you into the faction. I do. But my whole reason for even exposing myself in this event was for my friends. Imagine us as a package deal. You don't get us separately, only together. The executives told me to get her at any cost. Her talent with the ice element is rarely seen, and with the amount of freedom they gave me, I should be able to fulfill a few requirements for her. Freya thought to herself, I may be able to accept that, but how do you plan for this to happen? And what you mean by not joining us exactly? What I mean is like a hired mercenary. While my friends join the faction, I'll be a hired mercenary that will be paid for every task I undertake. How much pay are we talking about? And are you going to be exclusively for us or other factions as well? I'll be assisting any faction that my friends join. As for the pay, it depends on how hard the task. I want to have the freedom to reject the tasks if I wanted to, or if it is too high above my league. And obviously, the pay must be equal to or higher than my rank. No point working hard to E-rank mana stones, or the such. Shiro smiled. That's as good as not joining our faction at all. We want a noticeable connection rather than a flimsy promise. Freya rejected. I expected as much. Now I just need to know their baseline. Shiro thought. She never expected her to accept in the first place. She just wanted to imprint the notion of what she wanted, so that depending on what they finalized the deal on, Freya would think she got a good deal. Then what do you suggest? Shiro asked, throwing the main question at Freya. Core disciple. You'll be a core disciple of the Winter's Grace along with your friends. While the restrictions are there, the benefits are much more than what others will offer. You'll even be allowed to pick a teacher to study under in terms of ice magic. Core disciple isn't too bad. However, you must understand that it means tying a permanent link to the faction, right? That is the opposite of what I want. Shiro shook her head. How about elite disciple then? Being under the direct tutelage of the upper echelon within Winter's Grace should be enough of a trade-off. Freya offered. I do not need to be in the shoes of a disciple. Do realize that I was able to surpass several level 50s to get to my position in the event. That is true. But we can both agree that while your close quarters combat may be incredible, in the art of magic, you have much to learn. Freya said seriously. No, we can't, as there are other sources of knowledge that I can access. But, to make this beneficial for both of us, how about a role that involves both our requirements? I want more freedom to move around and for my friends to join the faction. Whereas you want me to be tied down to the faction. Indeed. So what do you suggest? Guest elder. Or something of the sorts. I'll be an elder of your faction and provide you with assistance. However, I am not directly connected to the faction in terms of inner workings. This way, we'll both get what we want. Shiro smiled. Freya thought about it and realized that it isn't too bad. She's right. It does fulfill what I set out to do. With her being a guest elder, she'll still have this connection to us. But we'll have to sign a contract. In times of need, there is a requirement for you to assist us. Freya said seriously. No problem, however. I need to limit the number of times I can come help. How does 5 sound? However, I'll only help if I am able to. So, if it is equal to a suicide mission, you can forget about it. 5 is a little. Let me ask first. Freya said as 5 was a little too low. However, if she imagined the future possibilities, then 5 was also plenty. Seeing Freya walk out of the room, Shiro laid back slightly. With my status as a guest elder, I'll be able to gain access to a large portion of the resources. Not to mention, I am technically only a half-member. I don't join the faction but have ties with them. Shiro thought. ####. Freya, who had left earlier, was on the phone to a fellow executive. She wants to be a guest elder rather than being a normal member. The guest elder? What kind? The mercenary kind. She'll undertake tasks with the title of guest elder and get paid depending on how hard the tasks are. While the connection is there, she isn't exactly within our ranks, is she? Yeah, which is why I wanted to see what the rest say to it before I accepted her proposal. I think this is outside of our hands. Perhaps you should forward this to faction leader and ask her opinion. She sets the rules after all. Do you think this is important enough for her to step in though? She might just tell us to reject her after all, and both you and I know what the leader is like when she's interrupted for something meager. Don't worry. Even on the front lines, you would barely see people who are able to make such a sturdy shield that can block against level 50s when they're level 34. Fine. It's on you if the leader deems it to be an unneeded worry. Just do it. It's better to check the leader's opinion for this. Disconnecting the call, Freya sighed before dialing a new number. ####. Somewhere deep in the mountains, a woman was sat on top of a mountain while cold winds blew against her body. Her hair, sky blue with a hint of green, billowed gently. Her figure was alluring as she had volume in just the right places. Opening her eyes, her golden irises could be seen. Full, just shy of tier 5 attunement, she muttered. Flicking her wrist, a freezing mist expanded outwards and froze the mountain over in an instant. Pulling out a phone she kept secured in a crystal box by the side. In case it was destroyed due to a breakthrough, she unlocked the screen. This better be good, she thought. Leader. Speak, she said coldly. The group that went to the New York faction event had sent news about an outstanding recruit. Then recruit them. Why did they disturb me? She said with a frown. That is because the girl wants to be a guest elder. She wants to retain freedom while still being able to use our resources. Send me some clips of her talent. I want to see for myself. Receiving the files, the woman narrowed her eyes the moment she saw Shiro. So it's her, she thought. Watching the clips, interest and shock slowly emerged as she saw Shiro block an attack from a level 50 with her shield. Continuing to watch the clips, she smiled mysteriously before turning to the phone. Accept the proposal. Let her become a guest elder, but put a limit on the amount of resources she can obtain. Make it so that she can only increase the upper limit after doing tasks for us, she said with a small smile. The caller was slightly surprised by the fact that the leader accepted but nodded her head. It wasn't her role to decide what goes on in the faction. ####. The faction leader has agreed to your proposal. However, there will be a limit on how many resources you can obtain. The limit will naturally be increased the more deeds you do for the faction, Freya said as Shiro nodded. She expected that the resources will be limited since she wasn't part of the faction. Let me get this right first. Is the pay I get is equal or above my rank? It is. Freya nodded. I am allowed to reject a mission if it is above my capabilities. Yes. And if I don't want to do certain missions, I can also reject the task. Is that correct? You'll be equal to a mercenary that will do tasks for more resources, just that you have the title of guest elder. Freya replied. Inwardly, she was still surprised at how lenient the leader was towards Shiro. Since that is confirmed, what do we do next? Shiro asked as she gestured for Freya to finalize the deal. I just need you to sign a contract to confirm that you are indeed a guest elder and that your two friends become members of Winter's Grace. Freya said as she handed them a contract. This contract was printed using a portable printer, so everything was legalized. Scanning through the contract and making sure everything was indeed how she wanted it to be, Shiro nodded and signed her name along with her adventurer ID. You two need to sign it too, Shiro said as Lyrica and Madison nodded. Signing the contract, they shook hands with each other. We'll be leaving for the branch office of the Winter's Grace in a week or so after the event is finished. I'll get you once we are ready to depart. Here is my number in case you need to contact me and vice versa. Freya said, handing Shiro a line of numbers. All right. Since I am a guest elder now, I suppose you're my senior? Shiro asked with a slight chuckle. Ha ha ha, indeed. I still have other things I need to do, so I'll leave first. Freya said, standing up. See you later. Watching Freya leave, Lyrica and Madison finally decided to speak up. Oh my god. Shiro, could you not feel the aura she had? Madison asked as cold sweat ran down her back. During the negotiation, they had constantly felt this aura from Freya that they could barely breathe. Yeah, I had the thought of just agreeing to whatever so that we can go sooner, Lyrica said, wiping her forehead. I did feel it, but I was countering it myself. What she was doing was making her presence known. If they do this during a negotiation, they'll be able to tip things in their favor. Wait, so you were doing it too? They both asked, surprised. Yeah, just enough to intimidate her a little, but not make her lose her composure. We don't want her to be losing face now, do we? Or else this negotiation would have been long over. Shiro smiled. How much intimidation did you output then? Madison asked curiously. Tap the seat she was sat on. Shiro smiled. Dang. Seeing the seat frozen, they looked back at Shiro, who had a soft smile. Overall, I'd say I used around 5% of what I can output. 5%? Let me demonstrate. I have a skill where I can freeze things depending on how much intimidation I output. This is only a small amount of intimidation I can output. Tapping the table, Shiro froze it almost instantly. That's a small amount? Madison cried out. Looking at the frozen-over table, she wondered how much Freya felt. Naturally, since her level was high, I needed to make sure my output was a lot higher. Shiro smiled and walked out of the room. Madison and Lyrica looked at each other and sighed. You should get used to it soon, Lyrica said, patting Madison's shoulder. I do. But every time I think I got used to it, she one-ups it. Madison shook her head. You think she's part of some super secret Inhuman hit squad? She asked. Inhuman, yes. Hit squad? Probably not. Lyrica shrugged and walked out. Madison shook her head and followed after her. Walking back to the dorms, Shiro entered her room just to find Nantion giving her a wave outside her window. CK me, not him again, Shiro thought with a roll of her eyes. Opening the window, Shiro sighed and sat on a chair. So what do you want now? Shiro replied, already feeling tired. I'm just feeling hurt that you half-joined another faction before mine. You're gonna hurt the poor heart of your future branch leader. Nantion acted as he sat in his usual spot. You said it yourself. I half-joined. And also, how the hell did you get info so fast? Did your stalking abilities level up? Ha ha ha, you flatter me. Nantion laughed. It wasn't a compliment. Would you join my faction if I gave better benefits? Nantion offered. Not only that, we allow you to join other factions as well. Plus, since you're going to be in my branch, I'll cut you a better deal. How's that, little Snow? A better deal, huh? I should be able to ask him about the materials needed for my broken links. Shiro thought, as this was a golden opportunity to scam someone else. Ahem, little Snow? No need to think of ways to scam me. Ha ha ha, since you're going to be in my branch, the resources are naturally open to you, Nantion said, reading her expression. Shiro was about to ask him about the items when she realized a crucial fact. Knowledge of these items isn't something a low-ranked adventurer should know. Plus, I've only been alive in this world for a few weeks and he knows it too. I'll have to make him say the materials instead of me asking for them. Hey Nantion, can I ask you for something first? Oh, little Snow's asking me for something? Well, this is pretty unusual, Nantion said. Shiro pulled a slightly annoyed face. All right. Sure, tell me what you want, and if it's simple enough I should be able to get it. He chuckled as he knew he shouldn't push her buttons too much. As cute as her annoyed face was, he knew he would be in trouble if he went too far. I'm asking about an item. Medicine type. I don't know the name, but the effect should be something like a rebirth of the whole body. Expand on rebirth of the whole body, Nantion asked. There were multiple types of rebirth medicine, but each effect is slightly different. There were rebirths as in change races, reset their level, change genders, etc. He didn't know all of them, and whole body was a rather vague term to be working with. Something like washing the body and revitalizing it, repairing any hidden injuries no matter how serious, and purging the impurities within the body. Ah, you're talking about the Phoenix Rebirth type pills. Why do you want to know about them? Seems like he's not suspicious, Shiro thought with slight relief. Because cleansing the body should increase a person's potential along with their stats, right? So, a lot of people should want the pill. Shiro replied. I suppose. But you should know that a full rebirth would be extremely painful and mostly fatal. People would normally choose a 1 to 5% rebirth, Nantion said with a shake of his head. I see. I wanted to increase my potential since it's a little limited right now. Shiro sighed. Little Snow, as a monster, shouldn't you have the monster title? Why didn't you kill more people to level it up? That should help you increase your potential, Nantion said. How did he know? Shiro thought with narrowed eyes. It's pretty easy to guess, especially since I know that you killed 2 people now, 1 in the raid and 1 for the item. True, but I'm not going to go around killing low-level innocent people who've never crossed paths with me. I would go for criminals or bandits, but seems like the government is doing a good job of keeping them at bay. Shiro shrugged. Oh, why do you seem more humane than some humans? I'm pretty sure that over 70% of people would go kill poor and under-leveled people just to level up their title. And yet you're almost like a saint compared to them. And you're a monster too. First, never ever call me a goddamn saint. I refuse to have any connection with the likes of some bullshit being known as God. Second, I'm not doing it because it is against my code of conduct. Shiro typed out with a serious and almost angry face. Nantion paused, seeing how much repulsion Shiro had just at the mention of her being a saint. Seems like anything related to the church is a no-go for her, Nantion thought. All right, then can I call you Little Snow then? As if you're going to change just because I said so. Shiro rolled her eyes. Ha ha ha, true. But following the topic from before, what is your code of conduct? I am rather curious. It's simple. I help people who I find interesting. Ignore people who I don't find interesting. And if they attack me first with the intent to kill, I naturally kill them in return. I don't bother with that whole return kindness with 100 times the kindness and return pain with 100 times the pain. 100 times is rather vague. Just say repay kindness with kindness and pain with pain. Shiro ranted slightly. Ha ha ha, seems like you read a few books? Eastern fantasies tend to include that a lot. Nantion laughed. I just found a few extracts when I was browsing on the net. She shrugged. Do feel free to pay me back with 100 times the kindness though. You sure it isn't 100 times the pain for all the times you stalked me? Shiro replied. I never hurt you though. So it'll be 100 times the stalking. This branch master feels happy that you're taking so much of your time out to hang out with me, Nantion said shamelessly. As if. I got better things to do than stalking a stalker. But back on the topic of the Phoenix Rebirth type pills, do you have any on you? Shiro asked. I don't have any on me as of this moment. I can probably get one sent over, but it'll only be a 1% to 2% rebirth pill. Nantian replied. What do I have to pay? Nothing. Just join my branch, and that'll serve as payment. Looking at her unamused face, Nantian coughed lightly. Fine. Normally a 1 to 2% rebirth pill would cost around 5 large silver errands, which in dollar terms are around a few trillion give or take. I'm not too sure. Nantian shrugged. Aaron, you don't use dollars? No. With the amount of dollars the monsters are dropping, it gets a little out of hand. Therefore, Aaron Smith made the premium currency, Aaron coins. These coins are made using a special type of process that only a few people know. I don't know what happened exactly since this was a long time ago, but now the higher level adventurers all use Aaron coins as the main currency. Dollars are only used for lower level adventurers. Then what's the lowest exchange rate for Aaron? Shiro asked, curious about this new currency. The lowest Aaron coin is bronze, followed by silver, gold, large gold, platinum, and so on. $1 billion equate to 1 bronze Aaron coin, so 5 large silver Aarons would be around $50 trillion then. 50 trillion? Shiro thought. She had never expected a single pill to cost her 50 trillion. Then your potential awakened stone from before, how much would it cost in terms of Aaron? Shiro asked. In terms of Aaron, probably a platinum Aaron coins. Nantian said. Platinum? And you thought it was a good idea to put it on sale? How else was I going to attract the level 50s away for you to get the awakening stone? Nantian gestured at her. True. 50 trillion. How do I even pay that? Shiro thought seriously. 50 trillion was indeed a large sum. However, it was a small price to pay to fix her broken links. Even if it only fixed her links by 1%, it was worth it. What exactly do I have to do in your sect branch? Shiro asked. Nothing. The sect is just a place to nurture talents. Outside of the times where the sect is in danger, you don't need to do anything. But what is in it for the sect? Helping out people with just the demand of assisting when it is in danger seems too good to be true. Shiro narrowed her eyes. You see, I had the same thought when I first joined, but it's the truth. From what I've seen, in the many years I have been in the sect master just honestly wants to nurture talents. Nantian shrugged. Seems a little off though. How about I cut you some slack then? You'll be something like a mysterious sect member that I recruited. You can use the disguise skill that you have to hide your identity. All I ask is that you help me out every so often if you can. Nantian said with open arms. How often? Let's say it depends on what you can do. If I have a task within the area you are in, you can help me out a little. Naturally, I wouldn't ask you if the task is too hard for you. But whether you agree or not, I'll still get you the Phoenix Rebirth pill. Nantian said as his body flickered away. Shiro paused in shock seeing how fast he left. Hashtag. Cursing at him mentally, Shiro frowned. He seems serious about getting the pill. How do I pay him back? She thought whilst furrowing her brows. Asterisk bang. Smashing her hand against the table, Shiro gritted her teeth in annoyance. There wasn't a way she could pay him back unless she joined his faction or give him some data on advanced technology. The first was a no-go for her since it meant that he could order her around whenever he liked. The second was also a no-go since there was no way she could protect herself if the advanced technology was tracked back to her. God damn it. Shiro cursed. Little Een, we're going to the dungeon. Shiro stood up. Walking out her room, Shiro didn't pause and dashed into a level 35 dungeon. Who pissed her off? Was the thought of people who saw Shiro's expression and realized her identity. Entering the dungeon, Shiro stomped down and reached her hand out. Metal and lightning sparked violently as a spear was constructed along with some gauntlets. The gauntlets were decorated with a few holes near the hand and elbows. On top of the metal plating, there were a few neon blue circuit-like patterns that turned red the moment Shiro grasped the spear. Pulling back her arm, Shiro gritted her teeth and gathered mana into the gauntlet. Asterisk Kish. The holes on the gauntlets lit up as they revealed themselves to be mini rocket propellers. Ha-ah! She shouted out the moment she threw the spear. Asterisk kish catch. Parts of the spear broke off as more rockets revealed themselves. The rockets caused the spear to rotate, becoming a drill of sorts, smashing through the dungeon walls and into the next room. Asterisk boom. Asterisk kshh. Steam blasted out from the gauntlet as the rockets turned themselves off. Sorry, this miss is a little pissed, she said while her eyes glowed with a blue color. With the newly opened hole in the wall, the monsters started to bunch up together as they charged at her with anger. Slamming her palm down on the ground, a giant magic circle erupted outward with a mix of neon blue and yellow. Die, she said coldly. A blizzard appeared with lightning striking around the blizzard. While the spell raged on, Shiro created a nanotech bow along with a few arrows. Asterisk boom boom boom. Each of the arrows were explosive types with each explosion ripping a limb off the monster. Hashtag hashtag hashtag. Sitting in front of the obelisk for the boss room, Shiro sighed at the fact that she didn't level up even though she had cleared everything in the first and second floor of the dungeon. Unfortunately, Een didn't class up either. Looking at the bird resting on her shoulders, Shiro sighed slightly. What kind of requirements does Een even need to fulfill? Shiro thought with a shake of her head. However, a good piece of news would be the fact that she managed to collect all of the D-ranked mana stones she needed to star up. Smiling at the fact that she was pretty lucky with the amount of mana stones she managed to collect, Shiro tapped the star up icon. I started to spread out from where she sat. Asterisk krrrr. A thin layer of ice was formed on the top of her skin as Shiro could feel the changes occurring to her body. Asterisk kin. A soft shattering sound could be heard. Looking at her body, she sighed in disappointment, seeing as though she barely grew. While my body hasn't changed much, it seems like my hair did, Shiro thought. Looking at her hair, which lacked any hints of midnight blue, it was instead replaced with a baby blue blended color into a white near the tips. Scratching her head slightly, Shiro sighed, seeing the changes her body goes through with each star up. What kind of change would I get for my level 50 class up, I wonder? Shiro thought with slight feelings of anticipation. Perhaps I might even get a decent body figure. Large breasts are a no-go since it'll throw my balance off. Not to mention huge breasts are such a pain. Probably medium-sized breasts? Yeah, medium-sized breasts seems about right, Shiro thought to herself. Looking at the benefits of Snow Girl, Shiro smiled to herself since the benefits she received increased by quite a bit. First benefit was 30 more points to allocate per level up. This brought her points per level up to 250 free attributes. Second benefit was a 1% increase to her ability effectiveness. While this may be a small percentage compared to her other bonuses, 1% would eventually become a huge amount the higher her level was. And the third and last bonus was one that she extremely adored. Ice Field Affinity, Passive, Tier 1. When the user is exposed to a cold environment, natural healing plus MP regen is increased. EXP gained is also increased. Effectiveness depends on how cold the environment is along with the tier of the skill. Every monster would have a preferred area they like to fight in. Example being, if a fire dragon was in a volcano, their abilities would gain a substantial increase in power. With her being able to create an ice environment and be able to reduce her MP usage, she'd be able to fight longer and harder. Stretching her body, Shiro walked towards the obelisk and teleported to the boss room. The boss room was a simple room. For main pillars that supported the room along with a huge chandelier that hung off the ceiling. The walls were decorated with some simple engravings. In the center of the room was an elongated squid-like figure. It had no skin and muscles could be seen stretched along its entire body. No legs, as what was there was just a mass of tentacles. Its arms were eerily long with densely packed mouths visible to the eye. Its face was covered with a tightly stretched layer of gray skin. No eyes, no nose, no ears. Just a single opening for a mouth. Otherworldly caster, LVL 35 boss. HP, 500, 000/500, 000. MP, 1, 000/1, 000/000. Remembering the general tips that the forums gave her for this dungeon, Shiro dashed towards the pillars and made a small ice bullet. Flicking her wrist, the bullet shot towards the boss. Asterisk moje. Asterisk bam. The bullet smashed against a mana barrier and evaporated into dust. Seeing such a tiny attack, the boss was enraged and slammed his palms together. Asterisk boom. A shockwave exploded outwards, erasing everything that wasn't hidden by the pillars. First stage. When the first attack hits the boss, immediately hide behind the pillars. The boss would send out a shockwave that will kill you instantly. Shiro recited in her mind. Waiting a few seconds for the shockwave to stop, she created 8 throwing knives in both her hands. Stage 2. After the shockwave, the boss would experience a slight weakening period. Damage it as much as you can. Jumping out of the pillar, Shiro twisted her body and threw all 8 knives. However, none of them hit the target. Landing back on the ground, Shiro narrowed her eyes and stomped down. Asterisk BZZ. Lightning chained from one knife to another as it continuously zapped the boss. Not wasting this chance, she then pressed her palms against the floor and froze the entire room. Smiling slightly at the fact that her MP was starting to regenerate, albeit a little slow, she created several ice turrets that were situated on the pillars. Flicking her wrist, ice spears could be seen forming inside the turrets. Asterisk boom 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 boom. With the barrage of the turrets and lightning, the boss's HP dropped little by little. Stage 3. After dealing as much damage as you can, you have 2 choices. Either crowd control the boss before it uses his next skill or hide behind the pillar. It is recommended to crowd control the boss as the next skill will destroy 1 pillar out of the 4. Understanding the fact that 1 crowd control wasn't going to be enough, Shiro planned to use Ice Chain at the same moment as Ian. With 2 crowd controls, there should be a high chance of the boss not being able to break free. Little Ian, Shiro shouted out. Asterisk chirp. Dashing out of its cover, Ian flapped her wings while Shiro aimed her hand at the boss and clenched it into a fist. Asterisk KRRR. 2 sets of chains sprung out from the ground and wrapped against the boss's body. Note for Stage 3. If you tried to crowd control, you have 2 main outcomes. First outcome, it is controlled and you have another damaging period. Second outcome, it didn't work and you should hide behind a pillar and reinforce it as best as you can. Asterisk kin. Seeing one of the chains had already broken, Shiro knew it was the second outcome and rolled into cover. The mouths on the boss's arms opened up and devoured the surrounding mana. This naturally included the ice field that Shiro created along with the turrets. Anuyo. Waiting for the absorption to finish, Shiro pushed her palms against the pillar and narrowed her eyes. Ice crystals formed in front of the pillar before rearranging themselves into a multi-layered shield. The moment she had finished the shield, the boss also finished its charge up. 2 orbs of light could be seen, one blue and the other yellow. With both orbs charged and ready, the muscles of the boss quivered as it used its palms to aim both orbs at the pillar Shiro was hiding behind. Asterisk boom. 2 lasers shot out, instantly penetrating 2 layers out of the 5 layers the shield had. Frowning slightly, Shiro made a few more shields between her and the pillar just in case. Asterisk ping ping ping. Smashing through all 5 of the shields, the laser slammed against the pillar but wasn't able to penetrate it. With most of the damage being absorbed by the shields, Shiro was able to prevent the pillar from being erased. Stage 4. After using its next skill, it will enter a weakened phase once more. Repeat the process of attacking and hiding till the boss reaches half health. Crouching low, Shiro dashed out of her cover and towards the weakened boss. With each step she took, ice would expand outwards before it covered the entire room once more. Asterisk crew KKK. Asterisk bang. Shiro flipped upwards and dodged the incoming claw before landing behind the boss. Making 2 daggers, Shiro jumped on the boss's back and dragged her dagger through the shoulder tendons all the way down to the hip. While she did this, she made sure that several ice spears were stabbed into the open wounds, decreasing the recovery rate along with dealing critical damage. Asterisk Kruk. It screamed out in rage whilst it tried to drag Shiro off his back. Ian style Phantom Arts. Second Phantom plus Faded Snow movement. Watching the arm phase through her body, especially through the torso, Shiro frowned at the odd feeling that it brought to her mind. Shaking off the odd feeling, Shiro deactivated the skills and grabbed the arm. Kicking her left foot at the shoulder joint of the arm, Shiro flipped her body over the boss while dragging the arm with her. She quickly made a nanotech dagger and threw it towards the shoulder to sever a few more strands of muscle. In-style Phantom Arts, third Phantom, counterweight Phantom. Shifting her center of gravity, Shiro ripped the arm off the torso. Asterisk Krukrua. Crying out in pain, rows upon rows of teeth could be seen, quivering in anger. Grinning slightly, Shiro had an idea. Pulling the arm up to her mouth, she took a huge bite and glared tauntingly at the boss. With her physique being that of a monster, she wasn't affected in the slightest. While it couldn't see since it had no eyes, the boss could certainly understand that Shiro just ate a piece of its arm. Even though it was currently weakened, it raised its remaining arm as mana rushed towards its palm. Fire and ice could be seen merging together. In-style Phantom Arts, second Phantom plus Faded Snow movement. Her body flickered towards the arm. Grabbing the wrist, Shiro kicked at the elbow area. In-style Phantom Arts, third Phantom, counterweight Phantom. Asterisk crack. Breaking the arm at the elbow area, Shiro pushed the charging up skill into the face of the boss, scorching it in the process. With the skill harming it, the boss had no other choice but to deactivate it. However, that was a bad choice since it gave Shiro more chances to attack the head. Opening her palm, Shiro created a dagger and slashed at the mouth of the boss. Since the skill had the fire element along with the fact that the boss was an INT-based boss, there were severe third-degree burns on the face of the boss. Even though it had some resistance to the element it was using, it wasn't enough. With the third-degree burn injury on the face of the boss, it was a prime spot for Shiro to sneak in more damage. Asterisk PSH. Dragging the knife along the face of the boss, Shiro tore a huge laceration from the corner of the mouth, through the cheeks and into the neck. Jamming her foot in the mouth, Shiro kicked off it and landed a short distance away from the boss. With the force behind the kick and the lack of support due to the ripped muscles, the jaw hung weakly on the boss's face with only a few strands of skin and muscle attaching it to the head. Pivoting on her foot, Shiro wasn't finished as there were 3 throwing knives in her hands. Asterisk passage. Throwing the knives, she was able to separate the jaw from the head. However, she continued her pivot and made a spear in mid-air. In-style Phantom Arts, third Phantom, counterweight Phantom. Kicking the pommel of the spear with increased momentum, Shiro tried to add one more attack in before the weakened phase finished. Asterisk dong. A hollowed sound rang out as the spear hit a translucent barrier. Tisk, just short. Shiro muttered as the boss had recovered just in time. If not, the spear would have smashed into the brain from the opening at the mouth. Otherworldly Caster, LVL 35 Boss. HP 122, 092/500, 000. MP 840, 000/1, 000. Looking at the amount of HP the boss had lost, Shiro smiled, seeing her attacks that exploited the boss's weakness worked like a charm. Naturally, she wouldn't have been able to do the same if it was a much larger boss. Her arsenal of attacks, as of this moment, were more suited to small-sized bosses. For large bosses, she would struggle with ripping off a limb or two to try to deal extra damage. With the understanding that its life was in danger, it immediately skipped to the final stage. Final stage. With the boss at low health, it would attempt to kill everything with the remaining amount of mana it has. This is why you need to keep all 4 pillars if you can. The pillars themselves act as prison bars, while the chandelier above the room is the chains that shackle the boss. With less pillars, the prison would be less secure. Break the chains that hold up the chandelier. The boss should be trapped halfway through the chandelier. Use this moment to wrap the chains around each pillar, and a special reaction should occur. The chains will melt into the pillars and become one with the pillar. Take this moment to destroy the remaining health of the boss. However, if you do not have enough pillars, the boss would be able to break out. You have around 1 to 2 minutes to destroy the remainder of the boss's health. Good luck. Creating 2 flying knives in each hand, Shiro threw them upwards and detonated the knives. The explosion managed to break the 4 chains that were supporting the chandelier. Asterisk boom. Slamming against the boss, the weight of the chandelier pinned the boss against the ground. However, due to the lack of an arm, the boss was able to escape from under the chandelier. F*CK. Cursing at this mentally, Shiro dashed towards the boss as she had around a minute to burst down 100k plus worth of HP. Creating 2 daggers, Shiro leapt towards the boss's head and swung the blades towards the temples. Sadly, the boss erected a barrier, protecting itself from harm. Tisk. Clicking her tongue, Shiro narrowed her eyes. Style Phantom Art, 4th Phantom, Internal Feasting Phantom. She wasn't too sure if the 4th Phantom would be able to help her bypass the barrier, but she had to give it a try. Asterisk boom. Suddenly increasing her output to 100%, her attack struck against the barrier, causing a slight ripple. Frowning at the fact that the attack did minimal damage to the boss, Shiro narrowed her eyes. The boss won't be able to spare too much mana on the barrier, meaning I should be able to break it with a single concentrated attack. Quickly drinking a single MP potion, Shiro created a huge spear and a gauntlet, similar to what she did the moment she entered the dungeon. However, the spear this time was much larger than before and housed more powerful rockets. Reeling her arms back, Shiro fired up the rockets at full power. Style Phantom Art, 3rd Phantom, Counterweight Phantom. Twisting her body, she made sure that she got the most out of a single throw. HAAA. She shouted out unconsciously to exert more power into her throw. Asterisk boom. Clashing against the barrier, the spear tried to drill its way through with the rockets firing at 100% output. The ripples increased in frequency and Shiro could see panic from the boss's body gesture. Asterisk kerboom. Ping. Detonating the spear just before it ran out of power, she managed to break the shield since the force exceeded the threshold of the barrier. Asterisk Keiru. Waving the dust away, the boss panicked when it couldn't see Shiro. Up here, Shiro called out, causing the boss to tilt its head back to look at her. With 2 daggers in her hands, Shiro had backflipped over the boss near the end of the explosion. Her eyes were cold and merciless as she stabbed the daggers into the open mouth of the boss. Style Phantom Arts, 3rd Phantom, Counterweight Phantom. Slamming her foot into the back of the boss's head, Shiro dragged the daggers up the skull and out the back of the neck. Slashing the brain into 3 parts, Shiro killed the boss, albeit a little too close for her comfort. Wiping the sweat off her forehead, Shiro sat down near the corpse of the boss. Resting for a short while, she collected the mana stone and looted the corpse. Armor, magic ball, sword, Shiro muttered seeing the loot. Thankfully for her, she almost never needed to bother with the loot due to the fact that she could create her own weapons. Switching out a few pieces of her armor, Shiro nodded seeing her new stats. Name, Shiro. Race, Snow Girl, evolution criteria yet to be met. Title, Shadow Empress, Beginner Monster, 1/10 humans killed, fratricide. Level, 35. Class, Snow Girl, Snowmancer. HP, 86, 800/86, 800. MP, 29, 900/136, 200. STR, 520, plus 100. VIT, 600, plus 95. INT, 850, plus 240. AGI, 670, plus 120. Dex, 600, plus 70. Def, 255, plus 100. Equals title bonus. Unassigned points, 0. Attunements. Ice Tier 2. Lightning Tier 1. Metal, Tier 0. Shadow, Tier 0. Balance, 12,840,030 US. Equipment, tap to display. Skills. Snow Girl. Tier 2 Ice Magic, Passive Regeneration, Blessed by Ice, Snow Magic, Faded Snow Movement, Cold Aura, Icy Touch, Icy Breath, Ice Field Affinity. Snowmancer. Dagger Creation, Nanotech engineering, Tier 1. Sword creation, bow creation, heavy weapon creation, shield creation, armor creation. Other. Minimap, inspection, disguise, thorn mana shield. Shared skills, Een. Shadow buff, Tier 1. Ice chain, Tier 1. Shadow cloak, Tier 1. Shadow talon, Tier 1. While the bonus was small, Shiro didn't mind as one step was still progress. She was about to call out to Een but paused. The purple glow on her body increased slowly as Shiro could tell that Een was classing up. The purple glow wrapped around Yin's body as a cocoon slowly formed. Watching the cocoon pulse slightly, Shiro was curious as to what Een would look like. Asterisk ping. The cocoon shattered, giving Shiro a good look at Een. Her overall size increased slightly along with the fact that the tips of the feathers had a black mist effect to them. This made her body look like it was lit with black misty fire. In addition to this, her tail feathers were also longer. Asterisk chirp. Opening her wings, Een flew over to Shiro and landed on her shoulder. Seeing Een up close, Shiro could see more neon purple patterns that decorated Yin's feathers. Een, LVL 21. HP, 40, 000/40, 000. MP, 100, 000/100, 000. Shiro widened her eyes, seeing how much MP Een has even though she was just level 21. What? Little Een, why is the world so unfair? If I didn't have my monster title wait, does that mean you'll have 200k MP if you killed a human? Shiro muttered and realized just how insane Een was. Puffing up her chest proudly, Een made a smug face. Seeing the smug face on Een, Shiro felt her smile twitch slightly. Gently knocking Yin's head, Shiro shook her head. Don't get too proud. You may have all of that MP, but do you use all of it? Shiro said as Een pouted slightly. Joking with Een for a little longer, Shiro checked to see if Een got any new skills that would be shared with her. Rift Walker, Tier 1. Utilize the powers of shadow and walk between the fabrics of reality. Distance traveled and time inside the rift is largely dependent on the user's MP along with tier. User can only see items and environment inside the rifts. Unless the enemy is also in the rift, the user would not see the enemies. Current limit, 10 meters. Cost, 1 meter equals 5,000 MP, /1 second equals 1,000 MP. Rift Walker? What kind of monster are you to have this kind of ability even though you're only level 21? Shiro muttered. An ability like Rift Walker were mostly seen amongst the monster of level 100+. Yet, Een had unlocked it at level 21. Asterisk chirp. Yes, you are amazing. Shiro praised honestly. Wanting to put the skill to the test, Shiro took a deep breath. Stomping down with her right foot, her body dematerialized into a cloud of dark purple mist. Shiro was surprised at what she could see right now. The world was like it was seen through a negative filter. Looking at her body, Shiro was surprised to see her body shifting around like a ghost. MP cost is a little too intense to be used over long periods. Best way to use it would probably to try burst it. Like, teleportation? I can probably throw the enemy's aim off along with my own if I'm not careful. I'll need to make sure I know where I'm going every time I use it, Shiro thought as she exited the rift. Walking out of the dungeon, Shiro made her way back to the dorms. Being able to vent out her frustrations made her much more relaxed than before. Plus, Een was able to class up, so that was another piece of good news for her. However, the moment she stepped out of the dungeon, she saw a slightly pale green light in the sky. The F*King totem is being activated, Shiro thought with a frown. Crouching down, she jumped upwards and landed on the roof of a building. Parkouring from one building to another, she stopped at the tallest skyscraper that was near her. Well, seems like the timing was pretty good, huh? Come to see your future branch master? A voice called out. Like I wanted to see you. I'm going to keep this short. When did the totem start? Shiro asked. It started literally a few minutes before you left the dungeon. Nantion chuckled slightly. Have you found the main nodes of the ritual? We destroy them, we'll be able to stop this ritual. I have, but only 6 out of 10. The last 4 are well hidden. While Shiro and Nantian were discussing what was happening, Huan Er was surprised at both Nantian's attitude along with Shiro's domineering aura. She's only level 35, but why do I feel like I'm in the presence of two apexes? She thought. I don't know how much I can do, but since they're bothering me, I'll help out with this. I might as well take this chance to level up my monster title if I can. Shiro thought. Since Prey came walking to her, it would be rude to not accept. Huan Er, give her an earpiece. Nantian ordered with a gesture of his hands. Nodding her head, Huan Er passed the item over to Shiro. So who is she? A servant of yours? A lover? Are you trying to two-time by stalking me? Shiro asked, wanting to annoy Nantian. Ha ha ha, is this jealousy I detect, little Snow? Don't worry, she is a disciple being nurtured by the sect. Nothing more. Nantian laughed. Hearing his thought about her, Huan Er bit her lip in frustration. Jealousy? I'd probably be more jealous of a fatty eating McDonald's than I would be jealous of her. Shiro rolled her eyes. Placing the earpiece in her ear, she was about to jump off, but Nantian stopped her. Just a little tip from me to you. Open it later, okay? Nantian said as he handed her a piece of paper. Shiro nodded and jumped off the building. Just say what you're thinking, Nantian said with his back to Huan Er. Why are you so nice to her and... No, just the first question. Why are you so nice to her? She asked. Because I see potential. Simple as that. His aura told her that it was all that he was going to say. Are you sure? Huan Er thought. Shiro, who had jumped off the building earlier, was dashing to the first of the 4 hidden nodes she pinpointed before. In her past life, she had experienced rituals of a larger scale than the current ritual. Therefore, finding out all of the nodes weren't too difficult for her. The first hidden node was near an old derelict building that was abandoned mid-construction. Landing on the building not too far away, Shiro opened the piece of paper. I know that you want to kill them to level up your monster title, and I approve. Che, annoying prick. Like I need your permission to do this. Shiro cursed. Style Phantom Arts, First Phantom, Illusionary Phantom. Flipping over the barrier of the building she was on, Shiro narrowed her eyes and dived towards the derelict where the node was. Faded snow movement. The steel beams phased through her as Shiro landed on the ground. Looking around her before turning back at the glowing light in the sky, she estimated the node to be around 30 meters or so below the ground. When did I last do something like this? Shiro muttered. Infiltration, assassination, and completing the objective. She remembered doing this for the nobles back in her world, digging up their dirt before exposing them. Fun times. Shiro thought as she pulled up her mask and hood. Making herself a pair of nanotech boots that absorbed sound, she looked around for an entrance. Seems like the entrance is a bit further away, she thought. Flicking her wrist, metal and lightning sparked as a device could be seen in her hands. Pressing the device into the ground, Shiro pressed a button to activate it. Asterisk boom boom boom. Hollowed echoes could be heard as statistics started to appear on the screen of the device. 3 floors, node being protected on the final floor. Mana signal-wise, they seem to be peak level 50s. Whoever did this didn't want the people to look suspicious when going around the city. Level 50 seems to have been the safe bet, Shiro thought whilst dismantling the device. This is above what I can handle. One level 50 might be okay, but multiple is definitely not okay, Shiro muttered. Taking the earpiece, she tapped it and inserted a few nanobots inside. Hashtag. Huan Er, who was currently trying to scan the city surveillance to find more hints about the nodes, paused in shock seeing her device being hacked. Nantian, we're being hacked, Huan Er shouted out in a panic whilst tapping away at the keyboard. Ho? By who? Nantian frowned as he walked over. For someone to be able to hack Huan Er's device in this city was too unusual. Huan Er had sweat drip from her forehead as her defenses were being broken too fast. I'm trying to fucking send you information. Why the fuck are you shutting it down, ah? A line of text appeared on Huan Er's screen. Both Nantian and Huan Er paused in shock seeing this. I need to get to the next site. This one is too much for me to handle. Here is the information I've gathered so far. Receiving a file, Huan Er looked at it skeptically. Open it, Nan Tian ordered. Huan Er nodded and opened the file. Looking at the information about the first node site, Nan Tian only chuckled slightly before his body flickered away. Meanwhile, Huan Er was still looking at her laptop in shock. Even when she was using everything she could, Shiro easily bypassed everything she did. But she's only a level 35 ice mage. How could she hack it? She thought in shock. Hashtag hashtag hashtag. Ohaya? This one is only 2 floors and has 3 people protecting this node. Cannon fodder are surveying the first floor? Shiro muttered in surprise. 3 seems to be a little too suspicious, Shiro thought. But it also seems pretty fun and within limits. She grinned. Standing up, she stretched her body a little and entered the rift. Due to her experiences with using Shadow Walker back in the Shadow Temple story quest, she was used to phasing through walls. Landing on the first floor, she hid in a corner near her before her rift skill turned off. However, the moment she appeared again, she came face to face with a level 50 cannon fodder. While the man was shocked, Shiro dialed her output to 100%. Asterisk Pushi. Breaking his jaw open, she ripped out his tongue within a short burst. Before the man could even scream, Shiro made a knife hand and pierced his throat. Gripping the spine, Shiro exerted force and pulled it downwards. The force ripped the spine out of the skull and killed the man quickly. The main thing about killing enemies higher level than you was to take them off guard. At the start of the fight, their guard will be at their lowest, so if she was able to take advantage of that short moment, she could easily breach their defenses and end their life. Not to mention, the man wasn't able to react in time since most of his attention was redirected to the pain he was feeling. Storing the man's corpse within her inventory, Shiro peeked the corner to see if there were more guards. No more for now, Shiro thought. Looking at the blood that had splattered around her, she waved her hand and froze them before destroying them. The 3 top-tier level 50s should be just under me, Shiro thought as her gaze narrowed. Entering the rift once more, she phased through the ground. Materializing herself the moment she was through the floor, she saw a target just below her. Style Phantom Art, 3rd Phantom plus 4th Phantom. Grabbing the target's jaw, Shiro pulled it back before slamming her knees into the spine. Asterisk crack. The knee snapped the spine in half as Shiro folded the target's body like a piece of paper. Blood poured out of his orifices due to every one of his internal organs being destroyed. Shiro immediately re-entered the rift. Appearing behind the second target, she made 2 daggers in her hands. The first slashed at the back of his knee, causing him to kneel, while the second stabbed his eye and into the brain. Backflipping into the rift, she dodged an attack of the final target. Asterisk whistle. This Rift Walker is so much more fun than I thought. Shiro grinned as this skill paired up incredibly well with her fighting style. Due to her amazing memory, she was able to constantly memorize the positions of her enemies. This made it so that the downside of not being able to see anyone in her rift could be ignored. Appearing above her third and last target, she realized that her target had very weak defenses even though he knew she was here. Not minding that fact, Shiro created a misdirection by freezing his legs. Landing on his shoulders, Shiro wrapped her legs around his head before twisting her body backwards. Making a dagger that extended out from her shoe, she sliced his neck tendons to make the next step easier. Asterisk crack. With a single twist of her body, she had spun the head off the man's torso. Asterisk bam. The body collapsed as Shiro walked up to the node, not being fazed about the fact that she had just killed 3 level 50s. If anything, she was delighted as she leveled up to level 36. However, she ignored her stats for now since she needed to deal with the node that was in front of her right now. So those 3 were formation experts, Shiro muttered in realization. The reason as to why their defense were weak was due to the fact that formations experts aren't combat personnel. They were more suited in laying down traps and barricading off sections of an area. Wait, then because I phased through the floors, I avoided all their traps? Lucky Shiro grinned. Looking at the magic circle that was sealing off the node from being destroyed, Shiro only scoffed since she had destroyed more advanced seals. Flicking her wrist, she broke the seal almost instantly and destroyed the node. 2 down, 2 to go.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.